All right, good evening. I'm Paul Kunkelmuller. I'm the chair of the City of Groton Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'm calling our meeting for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 to order at 6:35 p.m. First item on our agenda is the roll call. So I am here, Ms. Bergeron is here, Mr. James is here, Mrs. Lothrop is here, and Mr. Rusk is here. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 20th, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve from Mr. Rusk. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Second from Mr. James. All right, anybody have any changes? All right, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so the minutes are approved 401. Mrs. Lothrop abstains. All right, so the regular meeting, the first item on the agenda is to accept an application for an amendment to the plan of conservation and development. And Leslie, you want to give us the
Sure. You have two printouts in your packet that is your desk. The way when you came in. The first one is the application to amend the plan of conservation and development. The second one is page 24. And on page 24, it talks about the council having passed a resolution at their June meeting to incorporate by reference the resiliency plan that the city had prepared. Some of the items in that plan have been completed. Some of the items in the PSCD have been completed. And so what's happening is those two different documents are becoming one. So one is incorporated as part of the other. The resiliency plan is incorporated as part of the PSCD. And then there is an update being done with the, you'll see the changes and, you know, so there's some additions and deletions. It talks about the thinner packet is the application to amend the text of resiliency plan as part of the PSCD. I have to say that and I have to give Sierra an enormous amount of credit for this. Typically, municipalities don't take their POCDs as seriously as we do here, which I commend the city for. And she is using the opportunity to make amendments to the POCD. Obviously, we're halfway through at this point. To keep people aware of the document, of its importance, both legally and in terms of keeping projects going, and with what we've done. Hi, Cam. Anyway, I think that's an excellent way to use the PSCD during the time that it's not necessarily being remembered as an active document. So that's what this is. You'll hear it next month, and there will be a presentation. It will be a public hearing, and it's basically treated as a text event.
okay. So we'll hear it at our October meeting, which is on the 16th. It's a Wednesday
Correct.
because of the holiday on the 14th. So we'll push to Wednesday in October.
Questions.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't expecting. I guess I haven't heard of changes to the POCD. I know we're halfway-ish through its life cycle. But I didn't, I haven't heard discussion heretofore about it being a living document and amendments and that sort of thing. I mean, I understand what the council intent is, but, we still refer to it as the Plan of Conservation and Development 2019.
And now it just includes the resiliency report as, think of it as another chapter.
I hear you. How will that new chapter be integrated in a way that reflects that a change has been made?
It is already on the website. And we can put a note on the website where it's posted. It's also in minutes. It'll be in the minutes of this meeting.
When someone picks up the 2019 Plan of Conservation and Development in November, how will they know that the following section has been amended by this edition?
Pretty much the only way they can pick it up is online, so we'll have, that's where we'll put the notice. Unless they come into my office and pick it up off my desk. There are very few hard bits. It's an expensive
I'm not saying a printing copy. I'm not physically picking it up. I'm saying, how will they recognize that a change was made since 2019?
I will.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's not a record of change page, you know,
what,
page 2 of the 2019 document says, this 2019 edition was amended in 2024, sliding in resiliency stuff.
well, we can add those.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Do it through a footnote.
there should be, just as any change with the zoning regulations. We put on the front page, we put amended.
Okay.
As of whatever date.
Like in a footer.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
um,
Because it wasn't immediately clear to me what was
that's all.
the proposed change. There's a sentence that says this amendment updates section 6. And then it starts talking about section 6. And then there's some chart. And it's not clear what is new and what is being changed. And then the pages that look like they're straight out of the POCD that have some updates with red ink, mostly to correct words that didn't have a period after it.
Yep.
And to decapitalize one word. So, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, following the semicolon, the next few pages will be added to POCD.
We can,
I just think
Yes,
if you
we'll
were
make it
upfront, if we were obvious about what was being added or amended. You know what I mean?
I like that. That would be my suggestion also, because just to put on the front that it's been redone. You know, people don't want to have to go through the whole thing again to try and figure it out on their own, if they could.
but we'll keep it marked. As for what's changed,
Okay.
Okay. And
because a lot of it is periods of capitalization.
and not to be petty, but of the stuff that was marked in red.
Yep.
Very first page of this stuff. I think you need a magnifying glass to figure it out, but in this little box here. Looks like it originally said, continue to address community issues. Make the city an even better place in the future. And in between city, somehow they lined out AN for N. There was a space before the E, a weird space after the E, so they put the word one in there. So now it says, make the city. It's just weirdness there, one Venn better place.
I think it's even,
Yeah, I'm just,
yep,
I think you might
Okay.
want to zoom in and.
Yep.
That was a totally petty observation I made.
Well, that's in the little box of all the 2 pictures.
yeah, I think had this been. Printed at full size, you can see this.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Okay.
All right, anything else? Anybody else, anything else? So we'll make sure that changes are visible in the document once we have the public hearing and it's approved. Right. All right, anything else on that? Do we need a vote? I mean, I think it accepts automatically, right? Just by us having a meeting. All right, also under regular meeting, Danny, the city clerk, wants us to adopt the meetings scheduled for 2025, which just amounts to the third Tuesday of every month. Except when there's a,
Council meeting.
basically when there's a Monday holiday that month or that week. Then we moved to the third Wednesday, right? That's
Correct.
That's all the. That's all the
Yes.
directions you need, so is there a motion to do that?
Make motion.
All right, a motion from Ms. Bergeron, is there a second? All right, a second from Mrs. Wautrop. All right, any discussion on the motion? Would adopt the schedule for 2025 meetings, which would be the third Tuesday of the month, except if there's a Monday holiday that week, we would move to the third Wednesday. All right. No discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries 5-0. All right, I guess another thing we should bring up under the regular meeting is bylaw change. Anybody have any changes to the bylaws? All right. Let's get with those. Okay, we'll get through this agenda really quickly. All right, ongoing business. Discussion of possible zoning regulation amendments. So we've been working on this for a while. And I guess I'd like to start and talk about, where we stand with things. And what else needs to be done. And then what's our path forward? Does that make sense? So things that we've been working on, we've added a bunch of definitions, a number of definitions. And Leslie has recently, in the latest update from 9/13, has merged all those definitions into the definitions section and the section 2.2 of the document, right? And the use table also has been updated. Thank you, Sue, for that. You did the update. So those two things are current, and Leslie, I sent you a few comments on the definitions.
Yes, those have not been.
Right, it haven't been incorporated, but it's mostly wording.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Couple of good bits.
Yeah, more back here than there, that kind of stuff. I'm saying,
No, I did note though that the graphics that we discussed a couple times were updated to remove, detail that. These are graphics borrowed from other sources and they had some numbers and things in them that didn't really work with our new definition. So I thought that was a good update.
I have a couple of questions. The definition. I like at that point.
well, sure, we can jump in, if you want.
No, if we're not there.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's just go through what's gotta be done where we are.
Oh, okay.
So the use table's been updated. I do have a couple questions on that, but I guess we'll walk through it all. The dimensional standards is also, that's a table we've been working on for a while. The last update I have on that was from 8/20. And so, and there were a couple of questions about just a couple of minor changes left to do on that. So that's something that still needs to be updated again, right? Just to get the last couple of things in there. Then there were the GC and GCR regulations, that section 4.6. That was last updated again on 8/20 is the last update that I've seen. And the same is also true of section 7.1, which is the parking regulations, right? That was an 8/20, that's an 8/20 update. Lighting, so that one page of lighting summary came out on the 13th. I haven't really looked through that in any detail, so there's, I have some discussion about that. I updated the and put together a spreadsheet to track potential impact from like the number of units that could theoretically be built based on the density. So that spreadsheet is with Leslie, and she's been taking a look at that, see what she thinks of it. And then I guess the other thing that's going on that is renderings. And is that still?
So I met with renderer 2 weeks ago, I think, last week. And we had a good long discussion about I gave him the background on the things that we were looking for, where the hot buttons were. And we went through a bunch of images that I had, most of which I had taken, some of which other people have sent. And we talked about, I think we've selected the images we want to use as base images. And one of them is going to be a view going up Thames Street, looking toward the where it turns into Bridge. The other is going the other way from Bridge, looking down toward Thames Street. And then not figure out how to describe what this one is. Another is a picture. I'm going to pass this around. You're going to see pink scribbles on it. Those are literally how the renderer takes notes, for what he's going to do. And so what we're talking about when the pink scribbles were drawn on here, were how you could put buildings onto Thames Street and still preserve sort of view corridors between them. And showing that it doesn't have to be, I think, the cataclysm that people seem to be afraid of. Understandable why they're concerned, but so pass that around. But it does, if you have trouble understanding the scribble, I'm happy to try and explain it. But it does show that, it's not building a wall. These can be separate buildings so that there is room between the buildings. The other thing that became very clear when I went around taking photographs was, and I took photographs from among other places, from Church Street toward the river, and then from Thames Street up the hill. And one of the things that's very clear is that there is a lot, mostly deciduous trees, but there's a lot of tree cover. If you can't see the houses, site works generally linearly. You can't see around corners, you can't see through leaves or around trees. So if you can see a building, it means they can see you. And so that there are very few direct lines of view from Thames Street up the hill to houses. And actually, one of the ones that's clearest is actually a rental. I think I was told it was an Airbnb, which is a whole other story. So that's, want to do what we can to protect the tree cover. We also. Thanks. So another thing that I wanted to pass around is, this is a to scale sketch, which is a little bit of an oxymoron.
Oh, sure.
And it is a section from Church down to the river. And it shows, the reason that it shows a taller building than what we have been talking about is so that people could see where up to 4 stories would lie. So you can see it. This is diagrammatic, this is not prescriptive. And it shows that in contrast to the section of a house in a real location, I have no idea whose house it is. And I took it where you have the largest change in topography. So from, I think it's 82 and change at the top of Bridge, at the top of Church, and then obviously goes to 0 at the water level. And one of the things that was very noticeable is that looking down, you see the tops of like the old carpet store. What you see is the top of that building, which is not particularly attractive. I suppose, you get used to it if that's your backyard, but it's just by way of saying a lot of what you see from Church going down is either trees, the tops of buildings that are, they're not green roofs, they're not, houses of worship with, decorative steeples or anything like that. So just for everybody to keep in mind what is really there.
So I think that what we've endeavored to do with public feedback and our second look at how we carved up the zones was to take the public feedback as one consideration, take the idea of a transition between single family home density and more than that density into consideration. And what we've done is we've assigned building constriction boundaries to the zone that encompasses the east side of Thames Street in a way that that accomplishes the idea of kind of a transitional ramp up and potential ramp up in density. We recognize that there's no legal right to a view from Church Street. I don't think that we need to do anything in particular to establish view lanes between buildings. Whatever gets developed there gets developed, but the fact that there's a 50-foot difference between the ground level at Church Street and the ground level at Thames Street, and we're only proposing a maximum height of 35 feet, means that folks on Church Street will at worst be looking out over the top of a roof below them. And I think that is, I think that accomplishes the goal of responding to the feedback we got, the concerns about a wall of 6-story buildings looking out from single family homes right into the window of apartment buildings. That's not going to be the case. I think further rendering to show what the maximums on the other side of the street would look like, the conception, like the bird's eye view you're passing around. I think that'll help a lot too, to kind of allay the concerns that the folks have had. But we're trying to pursue the possibility of development that includes some more housing, and I think we've done a very thoughtful and respectful job of phasing that in to the existing density and in the places where density can be achieved.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I think we're making good progress there and that. Now, I mean, one of the reasons we've been talking about having a sort of a public forum before we go to public hearing. And, I think it would be good to have renderings available for that, so.
Right.
Leslie, any idea on timing when these will be?
Hoping for, in time for the next meeting, but I'm thinking that maybe what we should do is schedule a special meeting for shortly after that. For. And I'm thinking as much of agenda management as anything else. We've got the POCD application for next month already. Is gonna be on that, and that I know does have a. There will be an in-depth presentation on what that is. But I'd also like the public to have the ability to have enough time to really understand and ask questions and take a look at images and things. One thing I would like to mention, and I sent this out to everybody, the article about that came from the training session from Clear on Minneapolis and sort of the unintended consequences. And I'm only putting this out here because we are in a position to, we haven't adopted all of this yet. We're in a position to learn from other people and also decide what makes sense for us here. One of the things, and in brief, is that, and I've heard this from developers who are also interested in developing in the entire area that we're talking about. So it's several developers, not just one. Is that it's virtually impossible for developers to build to 2 stories and make money. It's something that they tend to walk away from. That's why you don't see them build. And that is that confirms what is in the Minneapolis article. Is that the unintended consequences of saying you have to build at least 2 stories or limiting it at 2 stories or 2.5 stories. 35 feet is the typical number. Can result in nothing being built because it's not economically feasible. It's up to all of you to have the discussion, but I did want to make sure that was put before all of you for that purpose.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, because Sue, you mentioned that towards the end of the last meeting about Minneapolis learning from was presented at the Clear presentation. And one way we could try to address that would be to allow a slightly taller building in the GCR 35 zone, maybe by special permit or something. So we'd have, if somebody wanted to build more than 2.5 stories, we'd have a public hearing and they'd have to go, there'd be more opportunity for us to have input and pushback if it was inappropriate, but we can still limit the max height to something, but we might want to, one way to give ourselves a little bit of flexibility might be to add a slightly taller building, by special permit. So I think that's something worth considering in light of the learnings from Minneapolis.
I'd like to comment.
But please, so
I had brought up,
It is.
I had brought up at a prior meeting, the seminar mentioned how Minneapolis, and it says right here in the article we just received, zoning policy prevented sufficient housing construction the city maintains strict requirements relating to parking, land use, building heights, width, and bulk. It refers to fact that the more apartments we have in the area, the cheaper the rents get because you've got a better supply. So that's a positive thing. And it basically said that much of the problem can be linked to overly restrictive zoning codes, which prevent new housing. Now, when I think of what we're doing here, you mentioned that there's, if you've got 50 feet and the highest building we can have is 35, that's 15 feet of empty space that could be utilized and not affect the people up above. And when you drive by that area, it's mainly trees at the top of that 50 feet that block those houses anyway. When I look at, I don't feel by limiting that to 35 feet, that we are working in the best interest of the city altogether. Yes, we're giving the people who come in and to the public hearing and wish, gave what their hopes would be. But when we look at the entire city, this is the area the commission designated as being the best location for apartments. This is probably the only area where we can put a conglomerate of apartments. To limit that area to 2 stories is prohibiting development because people are not going to build 2 stories. Like you said, it's just not cost effective for them. So basically we're saying, yeah, we're writing new regulations, but we're not allowing any development. And nobody, I talked at one other meeting about the apartments that I went to view in Pink Row in Montville. It's an old brick building that's being converted into apartments, manufacturing place. There was an article in the paper in the Day a couple weeks ago that said that development will have a brook walkabout, a gym, and a cinema. That's our competition. If we limit 2 stories and we're gonna have to put amenities in there to attract people, that doesn't make it cost effective and nobody is going to build. When we're saying, okay, you can have 35, feet here. Am I gonna pick the land on Thames Street, which faces the water, or am I gonna pick the land on Bridge Street, which faces a railroad track? We're hindering our best lots. I just don't think we are working in the best interest of the city. It stifles the economic development.
Let me ask you this, what, we're talking about the east side of Thames Street where the 35-foot restriction is, and the south side of Bridge Street. So we're only talking about a few properties to begin with.
Yep.
And we are talking about the transition from single family, I think one in the corner that might be a duplex, and then a series of a handful of properties that are abutting single family homes up the hill. And then we are allowing 50-foot structures all along Thames Street, across the street and around the corner. We've already rationalized that the size of those other properties across Thames Street, being 1.5+ acre lots, could accommodate more than one 50-foot building, many units. I think we discussed the idea that the east side of Thames Street, allowing for, again, greater than 2 dwelling units, depending on how you flesh out a property design, was in some way kind of a transition between what is there right now and what would be on the west side of Thames Street, what could be on the west side of Thames Street. So
How do you get a transition from the east side to the west side? I can see if you were talking transition in a line on east side, but to me, what's on one side doesn't necessarily affect what's on the other side. And when you look at what's there now, when you look at the old police department building, that's well over 35 feet and it's on an elevated lot. And it's not bothering anybody up above. I just,
I can't verify that it's over 35 feet. I think it is probably in the range of 35 feet.
so why, I mean, and like I said, it's an elevated lot. To put 50 feet there would do no harm to anybody.
Other comments?
As not having been here for the earlier conversations, please feel free to fill me in on anything. But thinking about it from the perspective of allowing the next logical phase of development. So right now we have single family houses and then, you know, some of those are already being turned into multifamily. So that's the next stage of density and development. And then after that, we get to apartments and things like that. Looking at what's there already, we have multiple two-story single family houses. Right, and some are like these beautiful, very high houses. So if we added something that was at that level or a little bit higher. I'm thinking about how it would change the landscape, and I don't think it would change it as much as it would. Like those renderings will be super helpful. But it is possible, to your point, Sue, that because of the change in topography, a small additional height on those buildings will not greatly change the landscape for the feel of the area. Just from the perspective of what's already there as this with single family houses. Some of those are rather tall.
I mean, when you look at that rendering and it had the 4-story building, that might be too tall. But I don't see a 3-story building that out of the possibilities.
Additionally, from a walking scale, and Leslie, you want to correct me, but from a walking scale, I believe that humans don't perceive the difference between, is it 2 to 5 stories or 2 to 4? There's a range there though that we typical pedestrians don't notice. Versus if you walk by a 20-story building, you will see that and you will feel the difference. If you just walk by a 2-story, and then one, it'll feel inconsistent. But there's a very human scale level of buildings that does go at least to 4 stories. So
Cameron?
I mean, aren't there already multiple 3-story buildings on Main Street? So
3 and 4-story
yeah, so I don't see, and that no one complains about them ever.
on the east side too.
Yeah, so I think that if we wanted to be as cautious as possible while still promoting some development, making them a special permit isn't a terrible idea, or going up to 3 stories under a special permit is not a terrible idea.
I just don't want to be the next Minneapolis being written about in seminars as to, yes, we rewrote our regulations to stifle development.
I think a lot needs to change before Groton City becomes the next Minneapolis.
I think the fact that we started with, you know, we're trying to get past 2 dwelling units per parcel is a huge step in the right direction. You know, whether we add another layer to the cake or not, we are already opening the door to increasing housing density. I think what we need to keep in mind is that you're talking about a little corner, okay, not that much area. And so we can't just open the floodgates and say, you know, sky's the limit, build as many apartments as you want, starting right next door to these single and dual family homes.
But we're not. And when you say it's a very small location, you're right. And that's why you need to utilize those lots. And if it's limited to 2 stories, it's not going to get utilized. And that's a waste to the rest of the city.
I'm saying the little lots are on the east side of things, where we've got a 35-foot right now. The big lots are on the west side. That's where you're gonna get all of the development. The east side will just require.
Why you're going to make those lots undeveloped, the smaller lots, and to have all this new apartments on one side and the same old thing sitting on the other side. You know, you're gonna have that same old police department, you're gonna have the empty lot. You are prohibiting those from being revitalized. And from the day I moved here and got on this board, all I've heard about is we need to revitalize Thames Street. Well, the only way we can do that is getting people into the city. And there are people looking for apartments. UConn at Avery Point is looking for apartments for the
Sure.
students. Mitchell College is looking for them. Conn College is looking for them. L&M Hospital is looking for apartments. EB is looking for apartments. There is a desperate need for apartments. And for us to say, oh, we've got this lot here and we don't want to go high enough for anybody to build on is not fair to the city.
I thought when we said 35 feet that we were talking about a 3-story building.
I wasn't here that night, so I don't know.
I mean, that's just,
The
you know,
one meeting I
15, 10 and
missed.
10. I thought that's what we were working with.
So 35 is generally the height given for a 2.5-story residential.
I hear
So
you saying that now. I'm telling you that when we started the discussions, I was working with the knowledge that
Okay.
35 feet meant we were allowing 3-story.
So 3 stories.
I,
I'm
do the
just
math.
do-
I'm
I'm just
I'm
doing the
telling
math
you,
for myself.
that's where we got 35 feet from, because 35 feet allowed 3 stories.
No, that's not where, definitely not where we got 35 feet from. That I'm sure of.
Okay,
I wasn't here.
It seems that raising it to 3 stories, whatever that works out to in footage is something we do.
That'd be what, 40 feet?
yeah, I think it's fair to note that the 50-foot differential of grade is not consistent over that entire section of the east side of Thames Street. So we don't have 50 feet everywhere to work with, but
But the one thing we do, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think it's fair that we use that space, just that we allow development in that space, but Sue, the other idea here is that it's a transition in density. It's not 6-story apartments on the east side of Thames Street, because that amount of density and allow the same or more across the street is not. It's too much density for that section of road and all the things that we've voiced concerns about. You know, you can't go from 0 to 60 there, from 1 and 2 family buildings to suddenly this massive wall of apartment buildings, just because you want to get, you know, 1,000 units on that corner. I think we're taking a pretty good approach, you know, keeping the west side of Thames buildings to 50 feet. I mean, that allows a little spread out because the parcels will get bigger, you know, and it may be multiple buildings or something, but you still, you know.
We're still talking below the top of the mountain.
Yeah, again, I'm not worried about protecting the view from Church Street as a matter of principle. I'm more interested in the idea of a reasonable amount of housing density because of all the other concerns that we talked about that aren't necessarily even the purview of planning and zoning, but they're a factor. They were a factor for the community members that spoke out.
So I guess my take on this is that we're not gonna. What we're talking about is not just turning anybody loose to build 6-story buildings on the east side of Thames Street. That's, you know, everybody, I mean, we all understand that. But the question is, I guess, you know, do we want to allow slightly taller buildings so that, you know, we could, you know, you might be able to get 3 stories in there instead of just 2.5. And, you know, if we want
It'd be
to,
5 feet.
right, it's another 5 feet in building height. And if we, you know, I mean, we could, you know, if we put a special permit requirement on it, now give us the ability to say, well, in this, you know, is this a reasonable transition on this particular property from the ones behind it to the ones that are gonna be across the street?
I don't think 3 stories is unreasonable to go from the most adjacent houses, you know, into those properties at all. Like I said, I was working, you know, for months with the working definition in my head that we were planning for 3 stories on the east side of things. It's only been in the last meeting or two that we've talked about it being 2.5 and we're, you know, limiting economic development. So I'm fine with calling it the GCR 40 or whatever it takes to, I mean, change the numbers, but you know, I think it's the 3 stories on this side, 50 feet or whatever that looks like on that side. And that gets us plenty of density.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think there's, you know, I think we're all pretty much on the same page in terms of that.
I would say we would need to, if we're just adding the 5 feet, then I don't think that would need to be special.
I agree, and I don't think that it necessarily needs a public hearing to build a 3-story structure next to a 2.5, 3-story home anyway. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that we would be okay if we just stop thinking of it as 35 and call it GCR 40 and GCR 50.
Cameron, you okay with it?
Yep.
All right. Gonna be making some changes to all the documents you've been working on, but it's all right.
That's fine.
It's
Yes.
fine.
I really wanted to say again, I know I've said this before, but I really appreciate that you guys have intelligent conversations and you come to a consensus together and the spirit of cooperation, even if you don't agree on everything, is really makes my job easier. Except for But other than that, it really is, this is how government should work, and I just wanted to say that on the record that I am so, it's hard. Thank you.
I really thought that the point of you passing that link to the article was about the unintended consequences of parking regulations.
That too, that's next.
Yeah, but that article didn't say anything about it. It only said that they got rid of parking requirements.
Yeah.
It didn't go on to describe the unintended consequences of that.
Well, is this a good time?
Go ahead, we're on the topic.
Because when I think of the parking, I think, is it really a right, not a right, but, I mean, if you've got Paul's Pasta and they don't have a lot of parking there, but people go there and people are willing to park way down and walk to Paul's. So if somebody's, having a business for us to say, well, you have to have so many parking spaces, we don't know if people are there all day, if people are coming and going. It just seems unlogical that for a storefront to have so many parking places when we know there's no parking down there.
Right, but that's an existing property that does have a little bit of off-street parking and a municipal off-street parking lot. And people don't really park that far away. They park in the intersection.
In the intersection?
They park in the intersection on marked curb that is no parking zone.
Oh, I thought you meant right in.
No, pretty darn close.
Driving past
but-
that intersection is a nightmare because of it.
It is a choke point and it's dangerous. And cars go by and play joust with their side mirrors all the time because of the density of parking. We're talking about parking requirements for new development on properties that we can insist that there's a reasonable amount of off-street parking, that applied for the number of residents and business uses, potential business uses.
So if someone were to open a new business on Main Street, would we limit? Or would we require them to
Talking about a
have?
zone that is existing regulation, we're not talking about changing those regulations tonight.
So where you have the term pre-existing non-conforming was developed for exactly these situations. If somebody, there isn't enough on-street parking and there's no room between the back of buildings and the water, frankly. So we can control for new construction. We cannot control for existing buildings. Now, one of the things to, I think, keep also in the forefront of our minds is that one of the things that we're trying to do with these buildings is not just to build buildings and apartments, it's to build a street that becomes a neighborhood. And so increasing the ability to make it feel more walkable and feel safer and in fact be safer. One of the things in the sketch you'll see is there's the top floors of the building that's, no, the one with the, yeah, that one. The top floors cantilever over the underneath the first floor. So that one of the problems we have on Thames Street, one of the things that makes it not walkable is the very narrow sidewalks. And the lack of any shade trees, both for feeling of protection from the cars, but also to help mitigate the heat island effect. And so one of the things that we can do, and this is just literally, I tried to put as many ideas into that as possible into one sketch, is that if you push back the first floor, cantilever the floors over, above it, people can walk under it, people can sit under it. It starts to serve more purposes for people who are on the street. And it makes it a much more, feels safer and makes it a safer and more gregarious area for people to walk up and down. And if we have a series of buildings with that, with similar configurations, we now have places where you can go from one building to the next, feel safe, be covered if you choose to. It's not totally covered. It has the effect of widening the sidewalk, even though it's not, all of it is not city property within right of way. Some of it is the private property, but it's not like we walk down sidewalks and say, wait, this control joint, you know, I have to walk on this side, not this side. Also gives room for, you know, little cafe table, chairs or bench or whatever.
So we'll be creating a walkable space where
Exactly.
cars work.
How are we creating that?
We're giving them the option of being able to create frontages like that. Because of the setbacks that we've set in the bulk regulations, the buildings do have to be that close.
Yeah, but
and
we're
they're the-
allowing, we would allow second floor to overhang the
Sure.
sidewalk?
Well, it doesn't, we could.
That's what I'm saying.
We
We're-
could do that.
We've said setback, isn't that the plane of the building? And you're asking first floor to be further past it, so that the plane includes second floor?
But because it's a range, it's not it's, remember it was from like 0 to 18 feet or whatever.
Okay.
It gives us that flexibility. And that is where conversations, this is just how it generally happens, is when I have conversations with developers and they say to me, what does the city want? And I say, look, it's not about what the city wants, it's about what, you know, how can you construct a building that you're allowed to construct legally and that is going to contribute to the public realm of this area. What we're looking, this is what we're looking to do. Now, if they want to build something that is totally within the regulations that it does not, hopefully our regulations are tight enough to get them to do what we want them to do without being so tight that they don't build. It's the advantage of form-based codes and having them be hybridized into regular use-based zoning. We say here, you put it here, 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 anywhere within this range. And if you do this, people are more likely to come and have a cup of coffee and a donut in front of your building if there's an overhang in case it's rain or sunny, exactly.
So we're trying to do with in terms of parking, just how we started on this discussion. In terms of parking, we're trying to find the sweet spot between not having, you know, the whole area paved for parking use.
Yep.
But having enough so that, you know, we can accommodate the constraints of the, you know, of the parking that's available on the street. But, you know, I think it, you know, especially with the, you know, for residential, you definitely are gonna need to have parking for the residential buildings. You can't rely on on-street parking for the residential buildings. And but you can, you know, I think the shared parking factors help. You know, kind of reduce the need from what, you know, just based on the example that we saw. In the it was in the regulations, the parking regulations section, right? That, you know, that there is a way to, you know, to kind of cut down on the number without necessarily causing a big problem for not having enough parking. And I think one of the things that generally has been a characteristic of development in the past is there's way too much parking, right? And that's, you know.
Everywhere
because
except for
everyone's-
Groton.
Well, I mean,
Except for EB,
yeah,
Yes.
specifically.
Yes,
yeah,
It is one place.
but-
yes.
but
Only has plenty for.
But in general, you know, that's, you know, we have a slightly different problem, so we, you know, but we're, you know, we're looking for a reasonable, you know, fix to that, rather than, you know, paving the whole area for parking and for not having enough.
Yeah.
You know, Halls is, you know, I mean, it's people have been, I mean, you know, it can be inconvenient. It would be great if there was more parking, you know, but, yeah, I mean, I know people park on the side streets, I do, you know, I mean, it's just, it's a nice thing to have in town. you know?
Yeah, and I want to be careful.
They'll
when
become
we
more
talk-
walkable.
Right, when we talk about safety, I don't know of any accidents that have happened in that intersection. And so when we discuss safety, I just want to be careful that we're not talking about the risk of scratching your mirror based, you know, compared to the risk of someone being hit by a car. Like those two things, I'm really willing to change the way we design our cities to protect people from being hit by cars. Scratching your mirror is not something I'm willing to change the design of our city, but that's just my purview.
Thank you.
What are you trying, your mirrors are so high.
I blocked up my brakes to stop from hitting people stepping out from those cars.
That is an issue. I think you're crossing speech. Yeah, that's a good point.
The striping of the road
Yes.
does not take into consideration the parking on the one side. So the lane gets, you know,
That's true.
unnecessarily narrow.
But it also because it also does, you know, show less, you know, it's a demonstration of Leslie's point that, you know, if the road is narrow, people have to slow down. Because that, you know, that does, I mean, it does slow down traffic.
But is that because it's only local traffic in those?
No. Well, usually as the road narrows, people naturally drive slower.
But, yeah, you know, in any event, it's a, you know, I think we've got that in mind, and we're, you know, we're trying to deal with that problem in a reasonable way.
Yeah, we definitely can't do the Minneapolis model and get rid of
Yeah,
parking, the off-street parking requirements. You know, because that just won't work with what little even street front we have, even on side streets.
Yeah.
To add all that, the housing that we're you know, residential areas we're talking about adding. You couldn't ask everybody to park on the street, just aren't enough places, but
No, I think the residential places should have parking because
Yeah.
they're new and they can account for that. I'm thinking more of like businesses that come in and like the one that went into the old appliance place
Yeah.
on Bridge Street. You know, to say you have to have so many parking spaces. I don't know that that's really clear. Or maybe.
I can tell you, I
yes.
would never. I can't think of anywhere where I would actually recommend getting rid of all parking requirements unless you were in. Sure, there's a place for it. I know there are places that have done it. Hartford has gotten rid of their parking, their zero parking. I think they're bringing some of it back. I think it was I think the jury's out on that one.
The whole
I
state.
commend you for not part of the guinea pig group on that one.
There's quite a few cities that have taken away parking. The whole state of Minneapolis has actually removed parking regulations.
State of Minnesota.
The state of Minnesota, yes, sorry. The whole state that Minneapolis is in, has removed parking regulations.
Yeah, so I mean, so we're, we know we can't do that. But we're looking for a reasonable, compromise, sweet spot there, and I think. We've had some good discussions about that. Any other comments on the Minneapolis learnings? We've got we know you have to be careful of parking. We don't want to make we don't want to make the what was it? It's the bulk requirements, right? Isn't that what how they summarized it in that report? Was the careful with the bulk requirements, not to make them too small, because then it's not, you're not getting, nothing's gonna get full. So, I think we've got some ideas about that. What else? We've got, well, there's the open space discussion. We still want to have that at some point too. That's on the.
Yes.
And then, looking ahead in terms of, one of the things that we wanted to, that we, so I guess in my, like, on my list of next steps that I was jotting down here was, so we need to get all the documents with the final changes done and get those polished up. Right? We want to have a public discussion, sooner rather than later. Probably is the auditorium a good place, and I don't know what the process is for setting that up.
Deal with that.
Okay. Then we're gonna have to, we'll make a presentation to the public. We'll, get some feedback. We'll take a look at it. Go ahead.
Are we gonna do the public? Oh, the public discussion, that's not.
Right, that's not a public hearing. We're still gonna have a public hearing.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have the discussion, gotta get our ideas out there with the renderings, and this is where we had talked about, at the public, discussion about, all of us taking part in some part of a presentation. Again, just jotting down some ideas, start talking about what the housing need is. We've got housing studies that have been done. We can do some presentation about the data there. What did talk about what the Thames Street study said, which was, you need to put more, medium density housing up at the Thames, the northern Thames, Western Bridge area, right? That was I think one of the big takeaways there. Present the proposed zoning map, talk about what we're talking about building where, so we can, everybody can understand that we're, put a gradual move from the single family homes into the potentially bigger buildings. We have to, we would certainly want to talk about the dimensional standard table. The renderings would be very helpful. I'm sure there'll be questions about density, so we can talk about that. And then get feedback from the public and see what people think. And we'll go from there.
Last time we met, we actually talked about using this meeting to collate the latest rough drafts that have been in the works. We asked Leslie to put all that together so that we would have a cover to cover document that we could review. Because we've been taking it in little chunks. I think we're still looking for that.
I agree. And there, what I tried to do was to give you what we had discussed as comprehensively as I think we've done, but there are still some issues in there. I agree with you, and honestly, timing wise, just this month ran out of hours.
Understood, but, you know, Mr. Boris isn't here to make this point, but we were talking about, you know, we wanted to put a sense of time, you know, an urgency to our proceedings. And so we had kind of worked out a sequence where this would be that rough draft meeting where we would kind of put it all together and cruise through it and look for continuities and, you know, that sort of thing. That we would wedge a special meeting in between this and the October to review all that. And then sometime in October, have the public session. Another special meeting for us to take public feedback and have a final draft discussion. And then as early as November, then, I know this is best case, but November, we were looking at the possibility of having our public hearing on new regulations. So I think we're still looking for, you know, that cover to cover, this is what the regs and definitions and charts and all that stuff will look like. So, I mean, do we think we need to schedule, I mean, is that possible that you could come up with that between now and, you know, a couple of weeks from now, or we could have a special meeting?
I would think if we could have a special meeting before the October meeting with everything done, that would,
Everything updated.
yes, yeah. And if we could have it.
When
couple
you say every,
days-
just so that we're clear, when you say everything, you're talking about the whole book, okay? Just,
Well,
because there's some chapters that will not have changed at all.
I got you, but we just keep looking at the same snapshot of
Yep.
it. And
Yep.
tweaking the same chart and the same pages. We really need to be able to put it together and go, oh, that doesn't, work, you know, or we nailed it, or whatever, you know?
Yep.
So that's what I wanted, that's what I was trying to do when I start off, was to say, okay, so the definition section, the use table, right? Then we've got the conventional standard, that's one page, that should be, I mean, that's, you know, that's 99% there, right? That could be finished easily. Then we've got the, you know, the regulation section, that's the new 4.6, right? And the parking that goes along with that. And the lighting is a piece of it, but I think that's seems fairly straightforward. I think there were a lot of issues around that.
Some of that is gonna go into, for instance, the outdoor lighting, the foot candle table that I sent you.
Yep.
Just be added to the lighting section that we already have in section 7. The parking and loading regulations will be added or replace the section in. Now, some of these are only for the GCR. The GC and GCR zones, not for everything else. So some of that will be like 2 pieces,
Not for everything else, what do you mean by everything else?
part, the other zones within the city.
Like the residential zone and the.
Some
I
of
thought all of this was for the GCR and GC.
correct. But there are other zones that operate under what's now existing. We're at, in some cases, we can replace some stuff. We're replacing everything for the GC zone with either GC or GCR.
Right, what I was picturing, which is what I thought we
Yes.
kind of talked through, was table of contents, cover to cover, section 1 through section 11 or 12, whatever it is. And on the cover, this applies to GC and GCR. And then we use that as a model. And then next time we go to do regulation updates, we're pulling the things that apply to the other zones out. And you know, that all that yeoman's work is already done, because now we're doing an amendment that brings our best section
Yes.
7 for the rest of the zone or the other zones.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying, that's what I meant when I said some areas, some of these sections aren't gonna change at all for
Sure.
this run,
Yep.
because we're not working on those zones. Okay, we're on the same. page.
Okay.
So if you could get that to us a few days before the meeting, so that people who work and don't have all day like I do will have time to review it and thoroughly review it.
But is that something that,
That gives you a week and a half if we're meeting in between the two. In exactly 2 weeks.
So, I've got some constraints in that first couple weeks of October. So
yeah, but I mean, is that a reasonable request that for you, that timeline?
Because at this point, I don't think,
I'm gonna be totally honest with you, the way that the current zoning regulations are configured. And they're only on the computer, they're not a separate Word document somewhere that makes it easy to. When they were put in. It became a PDF that is. An odd configuration, all the chapters are separate. See that you can click on it, it makes it easy if you know that you want to go to something, but it makes it difficult to do a global search of the full document, for instance.
so you
It's-
couldn't just go into the document, highlight the section you want.
It's literally retyping the whole document.
Oh, no, there's gotta be an easy way.
Um,
You can, I know you can change a PDF to a Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it does funky things. Yeah, I will do the absolute best that I can do. Okay, and I will, be here for hours, and I don't have any problem doing that. This is the right thing to be doing, and I have no problem doing that.
So what's a reasonable time?
What are your constraints, Bob?
I'm gonna be gone from September 30th to October 10th.
Oh.
And you can't Zoom?
No,
So the 15th then. The night before our.
The neighborhood.
That's
a quick turnaround for Leslie.
If the 16th of October is the earliest that we can get everybody together and get the draft that we need and give Leslie time to, put it all together and, give it a once through on the formatting,
Yeah.
then we use the 16th as our rough draft collate day. And we try to plot out a couple weeks later, maybe, to have our public information center, session.
And if we get the draft beforehand, we can all look over it and maybe send via email, like, proofreading
Yep.
items. And that way it kind of gets.
That would be hugely helpful. So I'll send you a Word doc. I'll send you a PDF because Word documents will take forever to send. Or I can,
what are you, I mean, what? You're working with these documents and you're working with them as Word documents, is that correct or not?
I literally have retyped everything that you have received and then some, because
Sarah would probably change it to a Word doc for you.
but when it changed, there is something about when it changes, it does weird things.
You're right, that happens, but I would say that,
But I
the
will go
city has
talk
an
to
entire
IT.
IT department that
I will go,
really ought to be able to be brought to bear and help you out and. And if that means that, that we send Paul to go talk to the mayor about getting you the help for this project. We're running out of functional 2024 time to get this goal done. And we don't want to push this into the holidays or after.
I agree.
And
Great, it's worth it.
the mayor wants it.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
too, So.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah. So,
Sorry to volunteer you like that.
no, it's, you know,
Okay, I will talk to IT tomorrow. And I will have them work their magic.
And once they work their magic, you'll.
I
make
can
any
still work.
changes.
I can still work while they're working.
So then we would look at, you know,
So I will try and get that to you. The end of the week of the 7th.
Let me ask you a question. How much, how much updating of the document is needed at this? Is it something that,
Most of what we're updating you, all of what we're updating you have.
yeah, so that's why I'm thinking if they change it to a Word doc, whatever small things you need to change, you could do, and we could have it. Maybe, when did everybody, when did you say? I'm sorry.
end of the week of the 7th, so right around October 11th-ish.
10th or 11th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna aim for the 10th.
All right, let's try and do that.
If you manage to get there by that end of that week,
Yep.
I'd be very happy to come in and pick up a paper copy that I could go take home for the weekend. You know what I mean?
I was actually, that was on my list of things I wanted to ask, if anybody wants a printed copy, easy peasy.
I like search function in a document just fine, but I'd take the whole weekend and go through that thing and, you know, look, flag it, highlight it and all that stuff.
And that would be fantastic, and then I will take that next week and make all the changes. Now, and one thing to think about is there's an advantage to having everybody look at the whole thing. It's definitely an advantage to that. But there's also an advantage to splitting it up. Maybe 2 people look at these 3 sections, 2 people look at these 3 sections, 2 people, whatever, however. Just something for you all to think about. I will pick up every red line. In a track changes. And then be ready to go.
Yeah, I definitely, before we go into the public hearing next time, I definitely need to see the whole thing cover to cover. Because I don't think that I had a good sense of cover to cover before our last round. Because there were elements that we had been focused on for a year and, you know, hyper-focused maybe, and then things that had been kind of left off that were discussed that I wasn't even familiar with. So. But that puts us at looking for a public date somewhere around Halloween or early November.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of weeks after that. So we have time to spruce it up. But we can sort of, you know, pencil in who's gonna talk about what and get started on that. So we're ready to go, right? When all I'm waiting for is the document, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, that's to Leslie's point about dividing and conquering.
Right,
you know.
that's what we had talked about.
I'm
What
just thinking-
what makes you think about?
Because I'm looking at October 31st is Halloween. And all the ghouls and goblins will come
Is
out.
that a Tuesday?
No, that's a Thursday.
Thursday. The yes, so I think there are 2 big advantages to having everybody participate in the presentation. There can also be disadvantages, but I think overall, number 1, you all have been eyeball deep in all of this, and some of you have expertise in certain areas. Like, I think it would be great if you could park, you don't have to do it yourself, and I'm happy to pitch in anywhere. Okay, this, I mean, I could do the whole thing.
Yeah, make it a team effort.
But I think that a team effort would be great, and in terms of, you know, parking and transportation and traffic, and that's, I mean, you clearly have expertise in that. You could say that in the beginning. And you speak eloquently, and, you know, everybody, fortunately, everybody here is a good public speaker and is, you know, understands what we've been talking about. And why, and so, I think that would be, I think it would also be show a good faith effort in terms of the public, that it's clear that their interests have been heard and considered, and some of them have been satisfied, and I'm sure some of them haven't, but yeah, that it has been considered as an entire project, not as a one-off here and there.
All right, so why don't we start talking about a little bit about the public discussion and who's got what. So there's a housing, I thought we would start with just this kind of background on the housing, right? That kind of, to me, is a sensible place to start. I'd be glad to do that. Then there's the Thames Street study, which kind of rolls into that, but it's, you know, I mean, that the Thames Street study basically outlines what we're trying, you know, what we've been trying to do. So I think it's worth spending some time on this. Anybody want to take that one? Anybody got any volunteers? Bob?
Notes it better
Well,
than anybody else.
I mean, reasonably, you know, that would be a reasonable expectation. Do that.
Yeah.
All right. Then I guess proposed zoning map changes, because that's the, you know, that's where a lot of, you know, where we've have taken the public input and tried to apply that to, you know, to what we're, you know, what we're proposing, so.
I'd be happy to articulate that.
All right. Jason, take that one. It's good.
It's definitely the one.
Yes.
And somebody, then we, so
What
talk
are the
about.
last three?
I've got, so I'm,
There's
so,
last two.
you know, so the, you know, then, well, then something about parking, how we're gonna handle parking. That one.
She's
Okay.
got parking, transportation.
She's already flew it in the turn radius of a Toyota Camry. It's-
Anybody wanna talk about density and what, what might happen there? I mean, I think that's what the people are gonna wanna know, so we oughta, you know.
So what's the last topic?
I'm happy to take that on, because I mean, I think that's an opportunity to get some excited feedback, you know, so I'm happy to, you know,
In place of the other one? Or with it?
In addition.
in addition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're kind of related, actually, you know, it's like the proposed zoning map
Yes.
changes are, I mean, they lead
Yes.
directly to the density calculations.
Yeah, I could just make it both part of the same.
I thought, you know, of some discussion and introduction and discussion of the renderings would be a good thing to, you know, because that was one thing
Yep.
that people asked for at the public hearing, so anybody want to do renderings?
Is that correct? Leslie?
Leslie, you want to?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. What else? What else should we talk about? What do you think, Cameron?
Well, we're doing a lot of updates to allowed uses, and
Okay,
you know, the discussion about you know, lot usage in terms of setbacks and crafting of the roadscape and all those kind of things. I mean, I think that's a worthy part of the discussion.
I can do the bulk regulations with the renderings. Using the renderings as examples of the bulk regulations.
That's the dimensional table.
And we can touch on the form-based code.
Yeah.
Streetscapes.
All right, how about the allowed use statement? We could just, Cameron, you want to do that? Okay. And what else? Anything else we gotta?
What would you like to cover?
I think that's it. I,
Stu gets the part where we say, does anybody have any questions?
oh, yeah, because I think, yeah,
And we all walk out and.
that's okay.
Well, we are gonna need to, so, I mean, we're gonna want public feedback, so we're gonna. So the question is, do we ask people to come up and speak it, or do we wanna, do we wanna have it more of a, I've been to these things where, the people, put sticky notes on, boards and, something like that.
That was actually a really good method of keeping it from being a free-for-all. The town economic development had a series of meetings, and I think we were in a couple of them. They passed out, stickies and collected them, and then they had a Q&A session at the end where they read the questions, they gave an answer.
I like that.
The keeper of all the stickies read the sticky question, and the experts gave an answer. I think that we would either use that method, which is appropriate and familiar, and there's lots of precedent, or some other method, but one way or the other, it can't be
Yeah.
free for all, constant questions during presentation, or we just won't get through it. It'll be an 8-hour session.
That was used at one I went to at College,
Okay,
and it was very organized and very respectful. So, it wasn't putting things on a blackboard or anything. You pass your question, and they handed out index cards.
Yeah.
right,
That's
right.
what the town did too.
Yeah.
And I thought that worked wonderful.
So I think that's a good method. And it's not to say that we couldn't take what did you mean by that? Or, can you
Sure.
expand on that, those kind of questions, but in terms of like an open mic forum, I don't know that we benefit from that, and we would want to frame, look, this presentation is to give you all the details of what we're thinking, why we're thinking this way, what sort of changes are coming, and this is how we got where we are, and then go into the, this is what we're going to be asking in a public hearing to, presenting it to whomever wants to arrive, and then it'll be videotaped and available, which I think would be great, because then even if you can't attend that night, you can still see it on, public television and review it before the public hearing night. Say, when you were explaining that thing, I drive a Toyota Camry, and and whatever. So we'll have it out there. It'll be, it'll scratch the itch from the previous round of public hearings about getting the word out in a better detail and ahead of the meeting and all that stuff.
I also think in doing it that way, if you let them stand up and do the questions, you might as well just have a public hearing, because that's basically what it is. And in doing it in this fashion, people get some questions out ahead of time and the answer as to why, so that when it comes time for the public hearing, they're not filled with scare tactics that people have been putting out there. So I do think, but could we have like a panel that would go through whatever the questions were, and whoever, like something Leslie could answer, something I could answer,
Yeah,
something Kim could answer.
So it sounds like we just collect the cards at the end of the presentation, and then like
Yeah.
Leslie or someone would read them out to us. And we would pick up the answers as whoever could answer them best.
Yeah.
Or we could
We
pick
just
them
divide
up
them up
as
and read
they
it,
write
whatever.
them. And that way Leslie or somebody could look at and pick out the best ones,
I think if we pick out the best ones, it's gonna be seen like we're taking only the easy questions for us. I think, you know, if we really want to sell people on this and make sure that they're getting across that we're as confident as possible, we
Okay,
need to be able to answer every question that's given to us.
I will say though, that at the town presentations, they did respect the time that they allotted.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if they only ended up with 14 minutes at the end to read questions, they didn't get through all the questions.
that's,
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
Just
okay, if
have
there's like
times.
100 questions, we don't have to answer every
Yeah.
one, but
Yeah,
we
it's
should answer as many as
simple.
possible.
Well,
Yes.
that was looking at the town, like there, a lot of them were, you know, there were
Similar.
2 or 3 similar questions about the, you know, so.
Yeah.
You know, one answer could cover several.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that we could do is, have people write their question. I really like this idea. Have people write their questions on index cards. We collect the index cards, whether it's, you know, one at a time as people have questions or, you know, collect them down a row,
Yeah,
whatever.
they just had a basket.
But,
that
yeah,
Put them in throughout the.
but it might help to then have somebody, and I'm happy to do it, divide them into like transportation and traffic type questions, but, you know, bulk regulation type questions, you know, housing and density, and, oh my God, what is this gonna do to our taxes questions?
Sure.
I kind of like Cameron's, you know, just put them all in the basket and pick them.
My-
And if a duplicate comes up, you just say, you read the question, so they know you're not just.
I'm not saying we don't go
Well-
through all of them, I'm just saying that we,
Part of my
Address.
concern with taking the time of separating them out, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just concerned about time crunch, you know, we don't want this period of like. Empty air where we finish the presentation, we're sitting here, and we're waiting for the questions to be all organized and collected when they're already there. And I think that we should put them in a basket, or someone should walk out and collect them, because I don't want people to be scared about, you know, how early they ask the question, you know, we don't want people to stand up and ask, or stand up and enter in their card in. Just because if people are scared to ask their question or scared to show that they have a question, it's gonna deter them from doing so.
And I think if you're touching them, just even if just sort of, people will say, oh, she's getting rid of some, so it's best to just.
I think if we just
Yeah.
pull them from a pile or something,
that's
that
fine.
would be fine.
We can work through it.
So the other thing we should probably do is put some timing around this too, you know. Like how much, you know, it's like 2 hours.
How long do we think, I mean, how long do we think the presentation is going?
Well, I mean, so that's what I'm, that's, I mean, that's the thing.
5 minutes per person or like
Yeah,
how does that?
well, that's, I mean, but that's, I mean, but that's, so I think we need to get a little handle on that.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I
how
think we're
much-
looking at a 3-hour total meeting,
You
you know,
think?
block of time. And yeah, I think we get every bit of half of that just in the presentation part, you know, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think people will listen if we talk that long? I guess
That's
that's
a
my
very good question.
concern, it's just that people would listen the first 30 minutes. Zone out and then start asking us questions about the next hour of what we said.
Yeah, well, that's very possible. I mean, the other element of this is, you know, you'll get in-person attendance to a certain degree,
Right,
you know, and then, but it'll be preserved in the record
yes.
and it'll be online or it'll be on the television.
That's true.
And folks that don't attend in person will get to watch the presentation, you know, ideally with the slides and that kind of thing. And we can, you know, in that way, we are broadcasting all this stuff in advance of the public hearing to do just what we endeavored to do, which was better public saturation of the information that we're trying to put out.
We are also a hybrid meeting, so we need a system of collecting questions from Zoom. If people join online, we need to collect questions from Zoom.
Excellent.
Yeah,
way
we
to
can do that. We
Excellent.
just, they can put it in the chat.
This, yeah, they can put it in the chat. This does not help our visibility, but I was just at a conference where they had a QR code. And it was basically a Google form and you just put in your question there. I don't know if we're techie enough for that, maybe not.
You
Okay,
tend to
but
get
I know
people who
I-
aren't techy enough. You tend to get people who aren't techy enough in these types of meetings. That's at least my experience doing town planning stuff is no one ever knows to use a QR code. Or the website goes down the 2 minutes you actually need it to work.
Yeah, but having somebody that you know transcribes the chat questions to index cards would be a great idea.
Or even just read them out
Yeah.
True.
during the Q&A for it and just go back and forth, you know, this is a in-person question, this is an online question, in-person, online, in-person.
Yeah, good idea.
And we can pull them up
Yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I do think
Save
prioritizing
the
people
index
who are
cards.
here is good.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking that prioritizing people who come in person is good. But I will say, to counter the point I just made, I know that.
Argue with yourself.
That typically public meetings are attended by a very specific group of people who are not very diverse in backgrounds and, you know, usually all homeowners, all certain age. And so I just wanted to bring it up that there are some people who this zoning code is going to serve really well, who don't even know that they should be coming to this meeting yet. You know, the con college students or that kind of thing. So, I just want to say that to prepare for this
I
meeting.
agree with the latter version of yourself.
Yeah, okay.
I think part of the reason that we need to like bounce back and forth between index and online is we don't want either group to feel like they're being disparaged, because the people who are coming online are oftentimes people who don't have the transportation necessitation to get here, or they work very late, and so they're joining like during their work shift or whatever. So we want to make sure we're being fair to both groups.
And by the same token, if we set the parameters for the time of the meeting, it starts here and it ends here.
Yeah.
We intend to end here,
Mhm.
you know, and if we've got 300 cards and you know,
Yeah.
50 things in chat, we may not get to all of them. We'll do our best to answer the questions.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the town economic development folks made an effort to offer that they would try to answer the questions that, you know, that hadn't been voiced, you know, when the time ran out. They were gonna put them up on the website or something like that, answer the questions. Something maybe we can, you know, offer in some way, but we'll have to think about how we wanna, you know, draw the curtain close at a certain time.
Well, that's, that's, and you know, and I guess from my perspective, how long were those, the town economic development and planning meetings were, what, about 2 or 2.5 hours?
Maybe at most, you're right. It was, you know, not that long.
Yeah.
If we have 7 topics, I mean, I really, maybe it's my naivety, but I don't see 10 minutes more than 10 minutes on any topic.
Oh, no.
So
Maybe
that's
2
an
hours.
hour,
Maybe 2 hours.
hour questions and an hour of answers, a half hour of answers.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, I mean, you could, I think that, you know, the people, you know, you give them out the index cards when they came in. I think that's what we did. And so as you go through the presentation, people can be writing down the questions.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so then I mean, I think what the town did is like, they would take a break for like, you know, 15 minutes after the presentation to collect all the cards and then, well, cookies and stuff.
Oh,
And,
yes,
and
we should.
water and,
Excellent.
yeah, and, you know, and then you know, and while people are doing that and getting their final questions ready, you can start, you know,
Yeah.
going rolling.
Plus, if they had the card, like, just as you walk in, if they hear something and that pops the question in their
Right,
mind, they write it.
Right, they can write it down during the presentation, so. I mean, I've got a shoot for 30 or no more than 40 minutes for the presentations. That seems reasonable, but I think that carry.
I agree, I think that makes sense.
And then, you know, because we want to leave enough time to answer the questions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people bring questions they already have too,
Sure.
you know, so there's gonna be,
All right. Got a plan?
okay, so wait, 30 to 40 minutes is how I so 5 minutes per person or less, which should be,
Yeah.
So 2-hour meeting,
2 hours.
2.5 maybe, but yeah,
Uh,
6:30, 8:30.
Yeah, let's cap it at 8:30.
so I just want to re-highlight the timeline that we have written now. So 16th is the next meeting after this is October 16th.
Yep.
That's gonna be ideally when we have the whole document to look over.
Right.
And then what, is there a meeting between the 16th and our presentation? Are we gonna do a special meeting between that to like talk about that? I think that was like Halloween weekend, we had talked to, or Halloween week, sorry. We talked about doing that, so what, the 29th? And that could be a good meeting as well to go over the presentation if the presentation is completed for the 29th. That way we can time things out better.
29th being
The meeting before the presentation meeting.
I thought that was what the 16th was for.
The 16th is when we're looking at the whole document, which I mean, they can be the same meeting, I just, us critiquing the whole document versus us actively preparing for the presentation.
No, you're
In the
right.
best interest of time should be split.
You're right. We did plan to have a meeting between,
Okay.
the final draft and at that 29th meeting, that would be our opportunity to look at the renderings and, just kind of pull it all together, make sure we've got the maps and, topo maps and, slides and that kind of thing. Put it all together.
We do the November, so the November regular meeting would be our presentation, or would that be a special meeting?
We could do it that way.
I think that would make sense.
Just make the regular meeting our public forum, our public information session.
And what's that November, which number?
19th, I
Can you
believe.
just be really sure that's not the week of Thanksgiving? which is
I think it's the week
I think it's
before.
The week before. I was mostly concerned with how close it was to election day, but
Yeah, it's the week after,
it's 2 weeks after.
2 weeks after.
Okay, so we want to do that on the 19th. The public, the public
The presentation.
presentation on the 19th. Okay, and we'll have a meeting on, say, the 29th to
Mhm.
go.
That's probably gonna be a short meeting, but yeah, just to go over
Just
the
to go over the
presentation, make
presentation.
sure everyone is on message and ready.
Yep, okay. Special meeting. Right. Regularly scheduled November meeting, which is 19th.
And that would be the public forum. Okay, so then we have the public hearing in December.
Depending on how well the presentation goes, yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's how we want to do it, where we meet between the 19th of November and the December meeting. If we can.
The December meeting, I mean, what is the
Tuesday.
third Tuesday of the chief? How close to Christmas are we?
Exactly the week.
17th.
Okay.
So, I mean, the idea there is that we have one meeting to take any feedback and digest any feedback that we got from the public forum.
Mhm.
So if we have the public forum in November and the public hearing in December, we won't get this filed and ready before the end of the year.
I think that
What filed, right? We would have to advertise the public hearing. At the same time we're having the public forum.
So two things have to happen. One is, I think it might make sense to have a special meeting on December 10th for the public hearing. Because one of the things that I think we want to avoid is, oh my God, it's so close to Christmas. and,
Sure.
Yeah.
So. And then, if first of all, if there's nothing more for the agenda for the following week, for the regular meeting, we can cancel that meeting without having pushed
Mhm.
everything forward, or we could still hold that meeting. It's not that, it's only a week from the public hearing. And at least everything, nobody needs to go back and refresh their memory about stuff.
Well, let's say that again. December 10th is the public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah.
If we have enough to talk about for the 17th, we can have a meeting or we can cancel it.
So, but how do we get these regulations enforced?
So after the public hearing decision, the decision needs to be posted in the newspaper.
Yep.
We have to have deliberations
yeah.
after the public.
So
hearing.
there'll be a period of time after, even after the public hearing, there'll be a period of time before they go into effect, obviously. So, I mean, I do agree that I don't think that it would get finished until January, probably.
When you vote presumably to adopt them, or adopt them with some changes, you'll set an effective date, an adopted date and an effective date. And when I change regulations, I really like to have the effective date be a Saturday. The reason is if you file something on Friday, you're under one set of regulations. Then there's absolutely no dispute if you file it on Monday. Doesn't matter what time you file it on Monday. That's the
So
subsequent set of regulations.
assuming the best possible outcome here, and we get to the public hearing on the 10th and we approve it and everything goes swimmingly.
We approve it the same night.
Yeah,
You can,
Well,
yeah, you can quote this.
that would be absolute best case, is that we get through the public hearing portion, we come out of public hearing, we deliberate and go into a vote same night. That would be, mark 1.0, our public information session did its job.
So assuming that best possibility, would it be feasible to make the effective date January 4th? Which is the first Saturday of January.
I think it would be feasible to make the effective date December 14th.
It's the bold.
Yeah,
so the other.
we would have
I mean,
voted
there's
it.
one other piece of this,
21st, if we have to have the meeting.
There's one.
17.
Yeah,
There's one other piece of this, which is the draft regulations, just like the draft P O C D changes, which have already gone to COG. Draft regulations have to go to COG. They have 65 days to look at it. So it we can send it. I mean, as soon as we're ready to call it an application.
And that, you're sending it to CCOG, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, do they meet at the end of every month to approve things like NECOG does?
the Regional Planning Commission hasn't met in once. I mean, typically it meets quarterly, but that's not how it's the staff at COG that actually
Right.
takes a look at it.
Okay.
And 65 days is what's in the legislation, so that's 2 months, but we can get it.
You have to go.
Now, if they get it to us before that, we can vote on it before that.
So we can't vote on it, so.
We have enough, so 65 days.
We can vote on it, we can't implement it.
So,
Okay, so November 19th at our public forum, we're ready in all respects to send the draft to CCOG, and then we have our public forum. January 23rd is the end of 65 days.
Do we have a chance to revise anything before they approve them?
Yes, because you can make,
Well,
they're gonna get a copy of the application that you are making to yourselves. And so that they have 65 days to look at it, and they don't rule on it, they opine. So that is,
but if we have our public presentation on the 19th of November, right? Then, I mean, I think we have to, leave time for consideration of what the feedback is before we move forward with, the next step, right? We have to, I don't think we can say on the same night, okay, we're good. We have to assume that there's gonna be some comments that we need to think about. And so, if we want to go to a public hearing on, which we could do, I mean, but we have to turn that. So at some point, we have to turn this into an application that has a public hearing.
It
I
has to
think
get
in good-
noticed in the paper.
Right. But in good faith, that application couldn't be submitted until after the public,
I think you're right.
right? Until after that public discussion. Well, I guess it could, but I mean, I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
We gotta wait until after that to submit the application. In case there are things we wanna tweak. Right? And so if we submit an application based on, on input we receive on the 19th of November, we'd have an application that we have to, we don't have to vote on on submitting the application, correct? Leslie, you would,
Correct.
we would give you guidance on what should go into that application, what it should look like.
And
Is
it
that-
should be based upon that final document that you're gonna get
You
in a
know,
couple
so-
weeks
right,
with any changes,
Plus any-
addendums
any changes based on the
Massaging.
public input.
based on public.
Well, I mean, maybe we could look at it this way. We actually had 3 public hearings, three rounds of it, on proposed regulation changes. We took the public's feedback. We've been working on that ever since. And I don't see the November 19th Public Information Center session as a collaborative workshop with the public for making amendments to the regulations. I see that as we are socializing our proposed amendment changes and providing an opportunity to take questions. That doesn't mean that the questions get summarily ignored. I mean, I'm saying that if we get something that makes us go, that we have an opportunity to scramble and we're meeting again afterwards to finalize our final draft. But I think when we initially started our December public hearing last year, we had already sent the draft to COG.
That's highly likely.
So I think that our draft changes will be a viable document when we go into that meeting on the 19th. And that we intend to look at it that way unless something shakes us out of our comfort zone and we go, oh, we need to go back to drawing board on that. At which point, obviously, we're looking at a meeting or two to make some changes. But I think that we have made the effort and we obviously, we put a lot of time into this, that we're presenting what we intend to do, and we're making an opportunity to talk about it. And the questions we hope to get that night are like, maybe you didn't explain that well enough. I don't see, what do you mean about this? Or what does that look like? And we can talk about it in greater detail, give perspective and all those sort of things. I don't think that we're looking at that meeting like, and what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? I mean, that's the effort that this body is making. We're taking best practices and we're taking our own input and we're making this amendment, proposal on behalf of the city.
So the only thing to remember, I think to make excellent points. The only thing to remember is that we can make changes. You can approve it with amendments. The amendments cannot make it more strenuous, they can make it less strenuous. So, and I don't think that there's anything that is just to take the hot button topic of height.
Sure.
If people came in and said, we want it to be 7 stories everywhere, we couldn't do that. That would have to be a new application because that would be an increase in the impact.
I don't have any fear of that particularly.
Trying to take something easy to, so, but.
So you think that would be a bigger change than having them come in and everybody insist on making no more than 1 story anywhere? I mean, I
Because
don't,
making it 1 story is less of an impact.
See, when she first said
Oh,
it,
okay, I understand. Well, all right, you said less strenuous, and I was trying to
I'm
understand. how
sorry,
you meant
so
the
I
application.
was, yeah, no, it's, anyway, and some of it also can become a separate list, and I had to do this with a major overhaul that I did once. Like, that's a really good question. That deserves full consideration on its own. We're not gonna let it hold up the implementation of these regulations, but we promise we will revisit this issue right after.
And then maybe
Yeah.
text amendment later on or something.
Right, right. We referred to them as the chicken hearings because
Yeah.
people wanted chickens and we're like, okay, we're not.
Yeah.
We're redoing the regulations for the entire municipality. We're not gonna get bogged down on chickens right now. We promise we will have it after. And we did. And we got chickens.
so,
But chickens wouldn't stop us from doing what we're doing right now. It would just be, we'll have the chicken conversation and make the text amendment for.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
so technically, after the public discussion on the 19th, we could just get together after the discussion and say that there doesn't seem to be any big issues.
We get together, it still has to be a meeting. So it has to be part of that meeting or part of a different meeting.
Well, but we could advertise that the third hour is. I mean, the agenda for that portion is like a regular meeting. It's our regular scheduled meeting.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
we could-
time.
You have
Well,
to
you
have
know
a
what I mean?
time certain for the meeting. Just
We would have to
start.
advertise
You
it
can't start it
6:30
earlier,
to-
you can start it later.
Well, so the way I would do this, the way I would think about it at least, is we start the meeting as a normal meeting with the presentation. So, we'll call it to order, we do a roll call, and then the meeting starts, and the presentation is part of the meeting. And then we just put, to emphasize that this is like the regular meeting time, we just put like ongoing business at the very end of it,
Sure.
So we put like a regular meeting would go like presentations and then questions and answers, and then we do ongoing business would be like post-presentation discussion or something.
Okay. And then I mean, we can have we can have an application ready to go. And then, based on what we hear at the public information session, we, file it as it's ready, or we make a few changes and file it.
Yeah, that could be, we could
We
use
talk
that
about that
time
on
to
the
make a decision.
19th after
Yeah.
the public information session to
Yeah.
decide what we want to do about the filing and. If it's all good, we can file on the 20th.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
And then we can go to COG.
Yep.
And we can have our public hearing, as we talked about, on December the 10th. Right?
Yes.
Yep.
And we could, potentially, I guess we could deliberate on the 10th again, depending on what we hear at the public hearing. Because that's the official. I mean,
Right,
do we, from the 19th to the 10th, do we have enough time to notice it?
14 days.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you get 21. Well, we have to notice it fast, but.
But I can talk to Danny about that. We can get a lot of this stuff done ahead of time.
Mhm.
Just have to, fill in dates or whatever.
Wouldn't that be great? Have everything done.
Oh,
So December 10th, public hearing. All goes well. Feedback is, hey, great job, thanks for going back to the drawing board. We deliberate afterwards and approve the amendments and then what, January meeting, and we say the effective date is. What can we say the
No,
effective date?
that's what you say when you're voting on it.
That's what I'm, that's what
Oh,
I'm-
sorry,
in that meeting,
that
yeah,
final vote.
So what is the,
Not-
what is the closest we can get the effective date to, is that the question?
that's what I'm saying. If we have to
Saturday,
give 65 days to COG, that's January 24th-ish or whatever, and,
So it'd be 25th at least.
okay.
I thought we could do it before they rendered an opinion.
I don't think we can be effective. So what if we, what happens if we vote on it, we set an effective date, and then CCOG turns us down? What happens?
They don't have, they only can give us their opinion, they don't.
So we don't need to wait for their opinion, we can just go.
So we're looking at effective date is the end of January.
December 14th.
I think that's too soon, we have to
No,
put,
no, no.
we have to put the decision in the paper.
That's
That's-
for how long?
I don't know for how long.
So December 21st.
No, the draft goes out publicly. That's the public notice. The commission votes to put it into effect. You don't have to then put it in the paper again.
Yeah, you have to,
Yeah,
you have to
give
send
the
a notice of
decision.
what our decision was in the paper.
Right, but that doesn't, I mean, it can be in effect then, right?
No, because it sets the appeal time.
Okay,
This is.
so we're still okay to
Their
think of
books
this as,
written on
So
why it, or what.
if it's approved at the December 10th, after the December 10th public hearing, and you put it in the paper the next day, we could still have an effective date of December 21st.
It can't. If you put it in, when you put it in, it takes a couple of days for them to run it.
Yeah.
So that's when I'll talk to Danny and get the,
So,
This is a whole week later.
I mean, you know, I'm gonna go back to what I said initially, I think a good time for an effective date, if everything goes smoothly, we should aim for an effective date of January 4th. It's the first week of January of the new year. I would say January 1st, but because you had suggested the 4th or first Saturday.
oh, I'll take the first.
It
Okay,
is a holiday.
so I would say January 1st.
yeah,
You know,
basically
Say-
a day when an application can't be. made.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right,
I think-
No, January 1st, actually, it's a good date, because then you can remember when they became
That's right.
effective.
Yeah. Okay, let's start it. And we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
So. I'm sorry.
No.
So 65 days before that is when we have to submit the application? Worst
No,
case scenario?
we give
Or-
COG 65 days to opine on
Okay.
our application.
Okay,
So we would only be cutting them off by a few weeks. So,
different,
you know,
yeah,
And that's made by staff, it's not voted on by the COG, it's made by staff.
Well,
perfect.
there's no, I mean, certainly not the COG planning.
Hmm.
I mean, The COG planning has an requirement here, so. It's not an act, it's not an action, it's an action.
you know, not to diminish the value of their opinion. You know, but I mean, if they came back in January and said, well, we just took a look at this, you people are crazy. Okay, then we have another meeting and we
Yeah.
do an amendment. We go, oh, yeah, you're right, we are crazy. We'll
But
fix
if they
that.
say we're crazy, do we have to do it?
Well, then we say, stay out of Groton and, you know.
Let's probably consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
mean-
will review and
I
opine.
mean, if,
on your decision.
I mean, yeah, you know, so based on the time we're talking about, they have until, what, sometime in the week of January 20th to respond to us.
Yeah, late January.
I mean, you know, is it the end of the world if we make it, if we made it effective February 1st? I mean, really,
I mean, that was-
Yeah, because people are waiting for it. Seriously, I mean, that's what the mayor says.
I want to toast the new zoning.
Big dinner on.
I think by the night of the 19th, we'll have of November, it is. We should have a
We
good
should have a good
sense
sense.
of our accomplishment has been received. You know, the feedback is maybe not to the substantive level that we received at a previous, you know, public hearing where it was like structural, you know, literally structural. And I think we'll have a good sense of what this public, our public, you know, has to say about it, and then we'll be confident about you know, what direction we could probably go on the 10th. You know, giving it its full due public hearing, and then we'll go. So,
Right, I'm gonna sit down with Danny and we're gonna mark out the dates for advertisements and because people have to know more than the night before that it's gotta be a public advertisement, we gotta put copy, we have to make copies available, we'll put it online, we'll put it at the front desk here, we'll put it in the library, anywhere else anybody can think of that would be a good place to put it. Is there more than one library? There's no.
in the city, just the building.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure it wasn't. And we will put it up, you know, we'll put it on the website, we'll put it in the newsletter, all that stuff, and get word out. And have it available so people can read it. So also, when people come and say, oh my God, the sky is falling, we can say, did you read it?
Okay.
That's
All right.
a good plan.
Okay. All right. So we have seen the updated definitions and the updated use table. You want to talk about those tonight, or?
I think it would be nice to wait on those for when we have the full document, just so we can see it all together. I get that'll make the discussion longer that night, but I think that's a good forum for it.
I did see that, it looked like, you know, Sue, you put the use table file together, is that right? It looked like there were a few,
There are some questions.
some questions, yeah, some line outs and some red ink or whatever there. Yeah, okay. Is that something we could provide a little backup right now tonight, just talk about those few things and not pour through the whole thing?
That's fine.
5 minutes.
All right,
Okay, on the first one,
Place of public assembly?
yeah, it's just, what that is gonna do is it's gonna take the bottom, the 2 rows below it and integrate them as part of public assembly.
Oh, you have enclosed and unenclosed now. That's what you intended to,
Yes, so one of them is because that's where the codes, the building code in particular gets very different. But
So we had a conversation, I just wanna jog my own memory about this and make sure I'm still on the same page as everybody. We had a conversation, I believe it was last time, or maybe 2 times ago, about the places of assembly. In that, similar to what we had done for the business and personable service, we would divide it out by size of building. Depending on like whether it's a site plan or site plan review or something like that. Which isn't reflected here, but I just wanted to make sure that we had talked about that.
I thought we said it was gonna be defined by number.
Yeah,
Number,
number of occupants or how big it was, yeah.
yeah, so we could break it out like the office that is described by square foot.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have 3 lines or 2, you know, threshold. Right, what's that?
And that's why the comments here is Leslie needs to identify by number.
where I left it, my notes from last time, we had site plan in all the zones for museums and libraries, places of public assembly. And the only thing that we really put a cap on was no conference centers except for the biggest zone, and that was a special permit.
so that was our original conversation, but I believe at the end of that meeting that we wrote that, we read the email Colleen had sent us with that suggestion.
Yeah.
And that's when we had come to that idea, but it wasn't during our normal discussion of it, it was afterwards.
Right.
wait, I need to know what I'm writing.
Oh, yeah, well, to
We're thinking.
deliberate, that
Okay.
is, to opine, if you will. My main the reason that suggestion came up was because I think we're all thinking of a conference center as being 600, maybe 1,000 people. Versus our discussion on a conference room inside the hotel, which could be 60 people. And so to clear all of that up, and also because, not that New England has a megachurch problem. But a place of worship or a place of assembly, that could be 2,000 people as well. Just to make it across the board. Not to rely on the definitions of words, but just to make it a numbers game. That'll also help with parking.
I would 100% agree. I think we should divide it out by square foot of the building.
Oh, okay.
So then we'd be taking conference center, putting it in one of the squares down below that's empty. And right below
I
the
think
So
place.
you're thinking not necessarily numbers of people, but square footage of.
I mean, we can do
assembly
numbers, we can do
space.
numbers of people, right? But that's kind of effectively the same thing for
Yeah.
a place of assembly. They're gonna make the square footage as open as possible to get as many people as possible. So they're just true. The equation's gonna be the same way.
So we would move it down into the empty square. And where the ones above are defined by people, that one would be defined by square footage.
Well,
Yeah, I imagine it's gonna look similar to if you scroll down and see where the business/personal services or even the retail section, I imagine it's gonna look similar to that, right? It's gonna say something like place of public assembly, yada yada square, less than or equal to yada yada square foot. Site plan, site plan, site plan.
yeah,
And then the next one will say the same thing between these two square foot spaces.
So you want all of them defined by square foot, not just conference.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I think that was what we're.
Because I think a conference center is a place of
Yes.
assembly.
Well,
So
right,
it should just be
yeah.
considered part of that. So you can not like delete conference center and just put it within
Yeah.
place of public assembly.
So if we're using 1,500 square feet, like all the other.
Yeah,
You know,
I think that's-
1,500 and under, and 15 to 10,000 and 10,000 above.
Yeah.
Then just because then it'll be recognizable throughout the regulations.
That'll all be the same.
Yeah,
It'll all be consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scales will be all the same. Then
Yeah.
I guess what we're looking at then is how would we want to divvy up how permissive we are for the size of assembly space in the different zones is really what we're looking at.
I would say they should match the business/personal service. Because we shouldn't be because if we make it any different, regulating it based on use, not by context of how big it is,
Right,
It's an extra level of scrutiny that's unnecessary. If it's the same, a church is a church, whether it's bigger than an office building or the same size as an office building. So I think we should just match it with what is already personal/business service.
So for any place of public assembly, less than or equal to 1,500 square feet by plan.
Like,
And for in between 1,500 square feet and equal to or less than 10,000 square feet, site plan.
Yep.
Okay,
Create
then-
10,000 special.
but we would be looking at, I mean, is that NA in the smallest zones?
I mean, it's not under business/personal service.
I know,
I think that'll just have to play out.
I mean,
let it
So they just-
organically just,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, if you want to build if you have a lot of restrictions, but you can build a theater with, let's say, seating, if you want to get creative, go for it, is my thought.
I mean, yeah, if you can fit 10,000 square feet in a tiny lot,
Yeah.
meeting all of the regulations.
It's
of that,
a bigger lot.
It's
Yeah.
effectively
Building
an NA
one theater's
without
not that
actually-
big, I mean, maybe, I really appreciate your perspective on that, I think that's a good way of looking at it in a, way of being consistent and taking any possible perceived prejudicial scaling out of it, by connotation of what place of assembly might mean. We're not trying to get into the business of defining what that's for. Whether it's a conference room for, traveling salespeople, or it's a place of worship, or it's a
And it may be something on
Right.
Tuesday and a different thing on
Yes.
Wednesday.
Right.
Yes, it allows multiple use.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the law prohibits you from excluding places of worship in anywhere that you allow single family.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
I think this
it's a-
works.
It's a sensible.
Okay, yeah, good.
And then do we need to, differentiate between enclosed and unenclosed? I mean, is that?
What would be an example of an unenclosed place of public assembly?
Playground or a park.
We get playgrounds already as
Watch
well.
it.
Yeah,
I guess there's accessory use,
Yeah.
right?
but is that important to us?
Whether it's enclosed or, yeah, I guess that's my
Yeah.
question.
I mean, I would say yes, we should care, right? Because I think a park. You know, a park looks different from a 10,000 square foot park looks different than a 10,000 square foot building, right?
Well,
But I would like, I
you know, I mean, are we? So should we care a bit? If somebody's vision for one of those, you know, 1.5 acre parcels is a big outdoor amphitheater on the river. And they want to use that whole parcel for such a thing. And our goal is more, you know, mixed use residential and commercial. Should we, you know, in some way limit what you could do for outdoor?
But then you should just limit the assembly, right? Because the use is the same, whether it's enclosed or unenclosed.
The requirements are the same whether it's enclosed or unenclosed. According to this chart.
I mean, we might could change it, but
If we're gonna have the same, the requirements are gonna be the same, do we need to differentiate?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Right, I mean. And if we're gonna differentiate. You know, what are we gonna do in terms of,
We have to-
where are we gonna draw the line on enclosed versus unenclosed?
I mean,
I mean, I'm fine getting rid of unenclosed and just incorporating it with the other one.
Unless you had the one where you wanted a special permit, that would be the only reason to keep them separate.
well, we do, right?
We're
It's
gonna have a special permit.
anything over 10,000 square feet is a
10,000
special
square feet,
permit.
special permit.
Under business,
But we're gonna apply that same thing
Okay.
to these places of assembly,
has 1 square. Closed and enclosed.
right? But
Yep.
Yeah.
And the special permit.
All zones for anything over
Greater than
10,000.
10,000.
Got it. And that's gonna include museums and libraries. Or really most.
I think it's just conference places. of public.
Well, museum or library was just site plan.
Yeah,
it's like.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can
that's
do that.
fine, we can keep it like that then.
So to make it easy. Where we have business / personal service / place
Oh.
of public assembly,
No,
no?
I like assembly under civic, just because, you know, it includes like other civic buildings like churches and stuff like that.
Okay,
Well,
so
Go ahead. Well, but along those lines, we could change the civic title. We could
So-
move museum and library. And then have, well, or however you want to do it, but make a heading that is place of public assembly, conference center, theater.
We
all
chose
of those.
the heading title civic because it's mentioned elsewhere in regulation.
Right,
so we're just gonna move these requirements, these footage
Yep, just
requirements.
copy and
Just
paste,
gonna
just
put-
copy and paste it right in place of
Okay.
public assembly.
place of public assembly and then.
So we have
1, 2,
3
3.
rows for that.
Yeah. And I don't think we should mess around with anything else under the civic column just because we don't want to move anything else.
but when we're talking about place of public assembly, we're also talking about conference centers and theaters, right?
Yeah.
Those are all included in the one, okay, thank you, good.
So we should probably put that in parentheses, places of public assembly to include.
It's a, yeah,
including but
is that
not
clear?
limited to, right?
It's-
Yeah, right, yeah, that's right. Gotta have the caveat there.
Yeah, it's there now. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay.
it is places,
So-
worship, conference
Centers
center,
and
and
theaters.
theaters.
Perfect, perfect. I love it.
Yeah, it's already there.
Sorry.
So we're keeping the individual line for museum, library, site plan across the board.
Yep.
And then you've got 3 rows for place of public assembly,
Based on
And-
size.
and then parking structure, surface parking, all that stays the same.
Yeah.
Playground use at the bottom by plan.
So I had a question about, I mean, so we've got parking structure as a primary use. Right? But what about parking structure as an accessory use? We don't, I mean, we have surface parking as a primary use and as an accessory use, correct?
Mhm.
So should we do the same?
Interesting.
Should we do the same thing with the parking structure? I mean, if somebody wants to put a parking structure on a, you know, as an accessory use, we're not necessarily gonna be. I mean, we're gonna be, I'd rather have that actually than to me putting a parking garage only on one of those
No, I agree.
parcels, right?
I agree.
I'd actually rather see it as accessory use to some other development.
So
Do-
just thinking out loud, would a underground or partially underground parking structure under, 4 stories of residential or something, would that be accessory? Or would that be a second primary?
It would be an amenity to the existing use,
Okay.
Because it's in the same building.
so it's not, it isn't a separate permit.
That's what my question was too, though, because when you read this, it looks like, wait, I'm getting a separate permit for my surface parking lot. That's accessory to
Only
my
if
building.
it's,
It's a paid lot as an accessory use.
Oh, okay, right.
That's
yeah.
what we were thinking.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
As
that
long
makes
as
sense.
that's clear, because I know, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's what we were, thinking as an accessory use being,
Separate from the required parking.
that's right,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
All right, so then we don't need accessory use for parking structure. Because that would be part of. Okay. So-
And and for that reason, Colleen, that's why we say as primary use, then we didn't allow it except in the GC by special permit. Because we have existing in the GC, other areas of the GC right now. And we didn't want to rule those out or make them, not conforming. But we weren't inviting the use of an entire parcel as a paid parking lot in this zone that we're trying to increase housing density.
So that's what we did for surface parking, right?
That's right.
So for parking structure,
Primary use, we said special permit in the GC and site plan everywhere else. Like if you want to come in and build a big primary use parking garage, let's see the site plan, conform to the other things. Go for it.
Is that
Is
makes
there a
sense?
case for an accessory use?
No, I mean,
Well-
no.
I guess my question would be, do we want to, I mean, by doing that with a site plan where makes it easier to put in a parking structure as a primary use on these
Mhm.
sites. And
Yeah.
do we want, I guess my question is, we want to see these sites turn into parking.
I mean, if EV wants to buy one of those properties and then add a shuttle bus and actually solve their issue, then yes.
Which even if they made all of this parking, it wouldn't solve their issue.
No,
well,
but
like
I think we
housing.
did think of the case, say somebody wants to put in, a 6-story parking lot where the roller rink was, where the shuttle bus,
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, hey, not a bad place for it, knock yourself out, solve a little bit of the congestion problem.
Yeah, so I can see that going both ways.
Do you want me to read the parking structure definition that's proposed? Is that?
I guess I'm more interested in Paul's question about would there be a case for a parking structure, not a surface lot, but a parking structure as an accessory use.
So what would that be?
Yeah.
A parking garage built in the ground that's not for the business, but is paid for? Like it's a, you pay to park there?
Well, so you go to, so that happens in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean.
That's how I park in New York City.
Well, right, the business puts below grade parking. And it's, and it's reserved for the people who, work there during the day, but in the evenings and on weekends, it's paid parking for the public.
But do we need to regulate that? If they're using,
Not the business portion, because whatever they're putting on the parcel.
Yeah.
As opposed to under the parcel or wherever they're putting their parking. Is regulated separately. And it's whatever that building is. Plus their required parking.
yes, but
So
if it's not above their required parking, then does it matter how they?
Connecticut has exclusive zoning, so if we don't mention it, it's not allowed. So if we don't specify that sorry,
Accessory use.
accessory uses, yeah, it's not allowed if we don't mention it explicitly.
And in the definition of parking structure, it doesn't mention underground. It's above ground.
Okay, so the parking structure, the proposed definition is a building containing one or more stories of parking above grade. Each above ground level counts as a single story regardless of its relationship to the habitable stories. So sometimes they're
It's definitely.
lower.
Mhm.
Parking structures typically have at least one covered story. I don't care if it's underground.
If it's underground, it's okay.
And because it's not listed.
Yeah, we should just add an accessory use. If someone makes it work, someone makes it work, Make
Okay.
it match the surface park, maybe
I'm
not.
gonna take out above grade.
How about we just take out primary use?
Ooh.
Are we going
Are we
to?
looking at the definition or the table?
Okay.
Well,
I'm
we'll
taking
we'll
out
just
above
take
grade.
it out above grade and the
Yeah.
parking structure definition.
But
So-
to satisfy Cameron's question, if we just remove the words primary use for parking structure,
Are we going to scrutinize a accessory use parking structure versus primary use differently is my question, right? Because if it's an accessory use parking structure, that means there's a different building going there, that we might not necessarily need a special permit exclusively for the parking structure. If that makes sense.
There's one other kind of structure to consider. I actually have not seen it in Connecticut, doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it's all over New York, which are these elevated things that.
yeah, you drive in, it raises your car, you park another one underneath it.
Right,
you know,
right.
it's Manned by an attendant.
Right. And it is a parking structure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
that's-
really
yeah.
surface parking.
Yeah.
Um,
I worked on one and it was just counted as like a garage or parking structure. Cause it was.
So I'd be okay with removing the low grade or above grade words and
Yeah.
removing primary use. And leaving a special permit in GC and site plan elsewhere. Because I think we've got enough other boundaries in place.
Cameron?
Yes, I would, instead of getting rid of primary use, I'd just say primary use and accessory use, right? Because we want to keep it consistent. Every other
Okay,
use uses that language. So instead
Primary
of just
and
getting,
accessory
yeah,
use.
we should just say both.
yeah, okay, that way it's
We
not
just
question.
do the same thing and all.
Yeah, yes, because there's a footnote that says every label is for primary use unless noted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We would have seen that when we got the printout. We would have-
Missed that.
So that whole sentence comes out?
So instead of
Yeah,
under-
the footnote stays because it
Oh, no.
applies to other things.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Under parking structure, we're just gonna say primary use and accessory use.
Correct.
That's it.
This footnote down below.
That's
is-
staying.
That stays.
That stays.
Good stuff. What else we got?
I have, I forgot to send it to you, Leslie, but I have a definition of commercial greenhouse I wanted you to look at. So I can send that to you tonight.
Great.
talk about it next meeting.
So,
And that's the next part.
It is next one.
Greenhouse.
yeah, but so surface parking, it's gonna be, right now, we've got. I think we have X's in for primary use surface parking for 35, 50, 50, 75, and 70.
No, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, for 40, 50, 50, 75.
I had before. Thank you. But those are X's, correct?
Yes,
Wait,
yes, special
yeah.
permit in the GC.
Special permit in
Just
the
what you already
GC,
have.
okay.
Yeah.
And as an accessory use, it's,
Surface parking lot, primary use.
Surface parking lot.
You should already have a line for that.
I'm just rehashing what's already there.
yeah,
Surface parking lot, primary, use,
Yeah,
yes,
we've got special permit in GC because we have exempt, and then the rest are.
great,
and then we've got accessory use, site plan up across the board.
Yes.
yes.
All right.
So you're gonna clear up the commercial greenhouse question? I had a question in the education realm,
Wait,
but yeah,
back to the commercial greenhouse.
Yeah,
The question is, did we decide okay as it was?
so my big issue with the greenhouse thing, that from our conversations, was that we didn't have a definition of what a commercial greenhouse was.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can make a decision, we cannot make an educated decision without knowing for certain what the definition is going to be. We
So-
currently do not have a definition listed, so I don't know what we can even put there.
The only thing we have defined is cannabis growing facility with X's. But we may have to somehow segregate that from the definition of a commercial greenhouse.
So for the purpose of the final that we're getting at the next meeting, leave it in there or take it out?
Hopefully, I will send Leslie the definition I have, and some decision can be made at the next meeting with the final.
Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it the
That's
way it is, okay.
I actually had one more comment under, based on my notes, farmer's market, we were gonna add the word temporary to that.
Okay,
Is it temporary in the definition?
so
I think,
we try, just so that, do we want to regulate it, because would you call the Stonington, like Velvet Mills, not a temporary farmers market? Like we
it's
trying
not a temporary, that's.
I also don't think we want just an open lot. I don't think we just want an open lot dedicated to a farmer's market that happens once every week, for 4 months, and then never again.
Right, but is that, I guess, most farmers markets by colloquial definition are once a week. So if we're saying we only want a temporary farmers market, are we saying we don't want, like, because the Groton City Farmers Market is temporary.
So
but
it is an
happens
accessory
in-
use to the park, right? So we want we want it to be able, you can make the application as an accessory use to an existing lot that has a use outside of it. Because we don't want, like the Stonington one, we don't want an empty lot that is used once a week for 4 months.
Right,
So,
I just, I
without,
don't think that's,
without clear definition in the definition of a farmer's market or something, and or something in the block here,
Yeah.
farmer's market, temporary use or whatever, accessory use. The footnote will tell you that it's intended as a primary use unless otherwise,
yes, I see, okay.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we need to either farmer's market is defined elsewhere and we will,
And it's not,
okay,
I was
then,
gonna say it.
then we should put accessory use in that block of the farmer's market.
Well, I think we could do it in the definitions.
Yeah, either way,
Yeah.
if it's in the
Yeah.
definition, then,
If you're just putting it in as accessory use, that communicates.
It's
That-
considering we don't have a definition for accessory use.
Well, but that makes sense, because that's why I was like, you're saying that, anyone who has a lawn gets to worry about proving that it's gonna be a temporary situation. I guess that was how do we prove it's temporary?
I mean, if someone with a lawn is putting together a farmer's market, that's pretty impressive to them. I think that would be like a,
Commercial development. That's what I heard.
I mean, yeah, I think you'd have to go through the accessory use.
Yes.
So would that be like, what's that place where I go get corn
I have no idea.
up in
The corn place.
I've never gotten corn with you, not yet.
Whittles?
Oh, sure.
Would that be considered a farmer's market after that? If it was, because that would, to me, be a permanent farmer's market.
Where?
Whittles,
In the town.
it just sells, it's a farmhouse with farmland and
Is it
vegetables.
open?
It's open every day, you know, in the summer.
So it's yeah, retail.
Yeah.
It's I think it's I think that's right.
You know, even if you do define it as a farmer's market, I don't think it matters, right? Because where that is a different atmosphere to where we're talking about, right?
Right.
So in out, like that might be fine, Whittles, where Whittles is, it might be fine that they have a full-time farmer's market area. But where we're talking about, I don't think it would fit, you know, what we're looking for,
Yeah.
so
Definitely. But
they
I-
certainly might exist, but.
So if we had a retail space in these zones that seasonally sold, you know, apples and pumpkins and corn and, you know, in other seasons sold other things, we'd just be talking about retail. They just happen to sell, you know,
Right.
farm to
That
table
was my
type stuff.
question, whether,
We're thinking of farmer's market, which is why we need to define it as a temporary seasonal, you know, kind of, you know, accessory use of a space.
Like that thing that happens at Washington Park.
All right.
That's a good definition.
Yeah.
I mean. The butternut squashes.
And it may serve us to also put accessory use in the block where it says farmer's market. just so it's-
Yeah.
Sure.
I lived in an apartment that had a farmer's market on premises every summer.
Mhm.
So them having to get a permit for that and then prove that it would, you know, like I just didn't wanna
Yep.
put unnecessary. burden.
Right, that's why we give it, that's why we put beef on it, it's like you
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would never see this application.
Right, and that's, we wanted to make it easy
Right.
for exactly that situation.
So we're going to greenhouse, we're kind of deferring that to.
Yep.
You had some questions about the school, there's some, I think there.
Yes, I did. Okay, so we split out school and high school and elementary, middle and elementary school. So I guess my question was, what school, did the word school encompass the other ones?
Yeah, you're talking about like school with less than 25 students.
Yeah.
My question is, what is an example of a school with less, oh, didn't we talk about
Bartender spot.
bartender school?
Oh.
We talked about the dance class thing.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
And
Okay,
that's
so
listed as a
school.
secondary use, right? So I don't know if we get like a high school or an elementary school situation that's it's a secondary use.
How did we come to the special permits for middle schools? About high schools, middle schools, we just straight X'd, you know, colleges, we X'd all that out. And we only allowed schools with fewer than or equal to 25 students in the smallest two, GC and GC 40 by site plan. Training facility by special permit anywhere.
that's what my notes say, that's right. Middle school, high school, middle and elementary schools were all Xed out.
Xed out or taken out altogether.
They were Xed as.
Not permitted in any of those zones.
Okay, so middle school and elementary is X.
High school.
That-
High school.
That's what I have.
So, okay, so we're basically promoting or saying, if you have a school that's less than 25 people, no matter what you're teaching, that's fine. But as you get to a middle or elementary school or high school, we don't want those here. That's what we're
No
saying.
middle,
There's
no
nothing.
high, no college
State
in
it.
any of those zones
What about elementary?
Well, and then that.
or elementary.
So, I mean, I'd even simplify that statement by saying schools less than 25 as a secondary use,
Okay.
right? Because again, you're not, even if it's the world's tiniest elementary school with 25 students, it's gonna be a primary use and we're not allowing that.
Well, we had school
We have school
fewer than or less than or
25
equal to 25
as a primary use
use.
Xed out.
we had it Xed out, well, we had it allowed some by site plan in GC and GC 40.
No. I've got all this.
I'm looking at the printed version that we had last meeting. We Xed out last meeting by pen, the bigger 3 zones, we left it site plan in the smaller.
Yeah, that's what I have, that's what I have too, and that's actually what the. Yeah, that was my understanding, we Xed it out, we Xed out even as, well, that was as primary usage, right?
That's right.
And then
Yeah, I
we
mean,
were,
it
then
even
we're
said-
gonna add accessory use. And we were going to, and then we had site plan for all of them, that's what I had.
Site plan, yeah, also we need to change secondary use to accessory use, right?
Yeah,
Oh, hold on, say that again.
Well, one of them is primary.
Is secondary use a language we use anywhere else?
Oh, yeah, oh,
Accessory.
yes, you're right, you're right.
But, so. Please say that again, Paul, what would you,
so we have school less than 25 students at peak as an accessory use. Right now, I think we had that as, we allowed that as site plan in all the zones. Because we
Yeah, I didn't
thought
have-
that would be,
So we have a site plan. with
We
first
had
two
that at one
X's and the
point,
others
and
X's.
then we changed the higher 3 to not allow.
but that was for primary use, that's what, that, according to my notes, that's. For high school less than 25 students at peak, primary use,
yeah,
we had site plan for the first, for GC and GCR 40. And then for 50, 50, 75, and 75, we got access,
yeah, for primary use.
for primary use.
So do we just
I
want to
didn't have-
match the primary and accessory uses to each other?
Well, I think we were gonna allow them as secondary use, so they could be in a, so you could have like a dance studio in a mixed development building.
Yeah.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Which, and you'd have
For
cooking school.
Right, for allowing as an accessory, so not as a primary.
So it's site plan all the way across on accessory use.
That's what I noticed.
And on primary, GC is,
GC and GC are 40 were site plan,
Yes.
and then the others were X.
okay. So. Yes.
And then we need the X across middle school and high
And
school.
high school.
But we had this primary use. Oh. Okay, I just didn't have this extra. I didn't have 2 lines for that.
And
I have in the, so in my notes, it's, I added it at the bottom. School less than 25 accessory use site plan. All the way across. Because we wanted, that was the discussion about, the cooking school, or the dance studio, and a mixed use building.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want it necessarily,
So you're, okay, so
sorry,
the opposite of what you just did.
do we want to do this like we did the retail and civic centers? Do we want to do it by square footage? So that
What
then
are
it
you
doesn't,
talking about?
for schools.
so.
So then training facility, school, tiniest middle school you've ever seen, thinking private. If it's a certain size, that's okay. But as it gets bigger, then it becomes more. If that-
No, I still think that we were thinking about it consistent with our vision for these zones by not allowing a elementary, middle, high school, college there.
Okay.
Regardless of the square footage. We didn't want to exclude the use of space for we left training facility by special permit in all the zones.
Mhm.
And I suppose we could do some verbal jousting if somebody wanted to argue that a high school was a training facility. But, we have
Well,
a definition.
we've got a definition.
Okay.
What's the definition? I thought the definition pretty much.
Training facility.
Yeah, facility.
We took out the word vocation.
I thought that was on there. I didn't
It's
remember
not-
what it said, but.
The issue I had, it said something about behavioral or,
So there's special,
Yeah,
specialized
Special
classrooms,
classrooms.
because I agreed with your objection to it.
We just took out the whole line for specialized classroom, yeah,
And we don't use that phrasing.
No,
right. And, yeah. Adult daycare is by site plan, because there's, it's both, state defines there.
Okay. Should we go to the next question then?
Can somebody send me what they have?
I'll make the changes and give it back to you.
Thank you.
That's why I'm really frustrated about. What did you?
Okay.
You had a question on here, Sue, about takeout food service?
Yes, it says, please confirm if to be deleted.
I believe so.
I believe so.
Oh,
Takeout food service.
yeah,
Because I think we did talk originally.
or is it just that one?
Oh, maybe it's just unnecessary as a line, because we've covered drive-through and we've covered retail, restaurant.
Food process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So who
everything else
cares
is
whether,
okay?
So,
Go away.
That whole,
Yes.
yeah.
so a takeout food service would be like Costa Vida, right? That's a takeout food service.
I mean, Paul's Pastas is like a takeout food.
Well, it
service,
is,
right?
that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I think the distinction is it affects two things. One is if you if you look at takeout as drive-through, we have that
Yeah, we already
as a
have
special
structure.
permit.
Yeah.
So the drive-through part of takeout is one thing. Parking your car and going into Paul's Pasta to pick up your pasta
Is
is another thing.
right?
And so you'll need temporary parking spaces. 15-minute parking or whatever. Or
So
not.
wouldn't that be,
And we
we
have
just use the
that.
shared parking fuzzy math for
Yes.
restaurant use?
So.
Yeah.
So what about a place like that doesn't, it's not actually a restaurant, you don't eat there, it just,
So T-Mac Bodega, which just opened.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, their food is really good. Really good. They're a good example because you can't sit down and eat there. You can just take out.
it's just a
Yeah.
takeout, okay, and so it's just treated as retail?
I think it's retail.
I think that makes sense, right? Functionally, it's the same thing as going
All
to
right,
the store
that's
for
fine.
15
Yep.
minutes.
Yep.
Okay, yep.
So
Should I go?
take out, we could put takeout food service,
So,
see
don't have to
retail.
cook again.
I don't even think we need to, if someone comes with a takeout food service, we say that retail.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
It's easy.
I had outdoor cafe as an accessory use.
I think we should-
I have a primary use one, or I have one that doesn't specify, so it defaults to primary. And we have it by permit all the way across. Maybe we want to specify that it's. I mean,
What is an outdoor cafe if it's not a building that has a
Yes.
cafe inside
Yes.
that you can eat outside of?
Right.
Thank you.
I don't even think we should specify outdoor cafe because it's just a building that you can eat outside of.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's just like a restaurant.
It's,
Yeah.
and we already have restaurant, indoor, outdoor, it's just an outdoor restaurant, that's what an outdoor cafe is.
But I think the first thing that popped into my mind is Ford Lobster. Where you had a restaurant,
Mhm.
didn't fit too many people,
Mhm.
so they had to get a permit to have tables outside.
Yeah.
So they have an indoor and an outdoor restaurant.
Yes,
So we have a restaurant, indoor, outdoor site plan, so.
Which is more scrutiny than we're giving outdoor cafe. Right now, you can just have an outdoor cafe. So why even define what an outdoor cafe is? Because people are gonna say, well, my restaurant isn't outdoor, it's an outdoor cafe.
Yeah.
And so they don't need a site plan. So
But
they'll
if
just
they-
build restaurants.
so what if they're just adding, like if Paul's Pasta wanted to put tables out in front.
Well, that's fine, because you already have the restaurant
Yeah.
application, you're already a restaurant, so we just allow you to eat outside so long as you have the space to do
Yeah.
it. Legally, you can't set up chairs in the sidewalk,
Yeah.
you have to have space on your property to be able to do that.
Well, and they actually do, because they have that deck outside the back.
Yeah, exactly,
All right,
so
you
I
just
don't,
want to eliminate that line?
I think we should just cut out outdoor cafe, it makes more sense to me.
Take off food service is gone too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the last question.
Accessory use other.
Other, yeah, that was, what is that?
Where is that?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
That is at the,
Oh.
so I think we want to use it as a catch-all, right? Because this is the accessory use that isn't defined section. I guess we shouldn't have that as a site plan if it's a catch-all.
Then it would be good. Well, considering we don't know what's gonna show up.
Yeah, we probably should do that as a special permit, because it could be something crazy.
Well, yeah, for some reason, last time we discussed it. We had a special permit and I lined it out, my notes wrote site plan of it. But I
We
think
must
that's
have
too much of a blank check, I agree. We're throwing out a catch-all there,
So you want a special permit, follow it?
and then we could just, that gives us the latitude to go, you wanna do what? You know?
Yeah.
so special permit all the way across.
Oh, there's our drive-through.
Wait, we're putting accessory use other as,
Special permit, all zones.
Also. Back to what it was.
Yeah, I just.
It was late.
Gotta go, but.
Yeah, that's definitely after 9 o'clock anchor.
Yeah. Um,
Do we wanna come back around to the telecommunications facility question, because I know, I mean, it's not here, but Bob had a very big. Issue with it previously, I don't remember if we had settled on less than 5,000 being okay.
That
Oh.
was my note.
So we needed it to be special permit because one currently exists in GC, that's what the
That's
conversation
right.
was.
oh.
And
That makes more sense.
we left it special permit in the GCR 75.
why?
Because we imagined that it could be a
Data
second primary use for, like top floor could be,
So we can't imagine it like that, right? Because it's not specified, so it has to be a primary use. We can't imagine a secondary, an accessory use. To a building, right?
Unless we added it as a line.
Very good. I mean, I think we could just exit out from there. I don't think anyone's gonna,
from GCR 75.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think
I'm with
anybody's
you.
gonna cry that we're not allowing telecommunications buildings.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
can, if they want it badly enough, they can come in and ask to change the regulation.
Well, I mean, they can get a special permit in GC.
Right, but even so, if they wanted to challenge, a parcel in one of the other zones, they could come with an application. And we just wouldn't be, we wouldn't be required to.
So
accommodate
taking a special permit in 75.
Yes. It's just special permit at GC. we already have.
Let's do that. Okay.
So, on
Good point.
boat club, beach club and marina, we've got. I think one of them, the first one is would be primary use, correct?
Yes, because it doesn't specify.
The second is
It's
accessory.
primary work, except where
Mhm.
specified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the second one is specified as accessory, so we know that the first line is primary.
Okay,
I mean.
that's fine, as long as it's. And the other thing I had was that we had also had special permit in GCR 50.
That's right, for both primary and
We
accessory.
changed both, we made both of those special permit.
Because of the existing property.
Right. Light manufacturing.
Yeah,
I had, according to my notes, we deleted the accessory use line. And and the primary use line, we put in light manufacturing.
I think that's why we blocked out this.
Actually, I had that we changed the smaller 3 zones to special permit for accessory use and left site plan in the bigger 2.
So I think this goes back to the conversation that we do not have an explicit definition for light manufacturing.
But now what we do now, right?
We have a manufacturing definition. I don't think it specifies light, does it?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, we had, this was just for manufacturing, accessory use. Special
And I
permit,
believe the definition we had for manufacturing was so terribly vague that someone's oven bakes for a living is a manufacturing.
That's actually if somebody's cooking at home. And like selling under a tent at the farmer's market. Be located somewhere where we don't know. That's actually a cottage industry and is covered by legislation
There's a statute, right?
2129.
Light
So
manufacturing, the assembly, finishing, or processing of articles predominantly from previously processed materials or finished products or parts may be accessory to a retail business, personal service use, and shall include sale making.
So I sew and I sew some clothing and I sell them online. That's manufacturing, and I have to spell out a permit for my manufacturing of selling sewed clothing online.
I think
If
that's
you're-
fine.
Is it
That's
light
cottage.
manufacturing?
If you're doing it at home, it's cottage industry.
Okay. So we should we put cottage industry in the definition so people, I get that it's a state thing, but we
Yeah.
should copy the state one into here so there's not that confusion.
Or reference it.
Yeah.
Just reference.
Okay.
But- I mean, I don't know that any person. If a layman reads this and sees light manufacturing, they're probably not going to think of their own sewing. And
Hopefully
then,
not unless they read the definition.
yeah,
I'm gonna put cottage industry and light manufacturing. Nope.
I guess I'm thinking someone who's coming to this and saying, okay, I am building sales, where do I fit? And they're looking at this under manufacturing, they probably already have an idea of what they were making and just looking between the options where. So I think distinguishing between heavy and light is where we put our focus.
And we have X's on in all zones for heavy manufacturing.
Do we have a definition for heavy manufacturing?
Anything-
We had,
Any manufacturing that's not light.
Heavier.
there was one I read. And I thought. It talked about fish and all kinds of stuff.
It's
So, yeah.
Oh, that's
Right.
from that's a lot. So for light manufacturing, though, Jason, I one with you, I have special permit in the first 3 zones and then site plan in the rest.
First thing is special.
Yeah, but, you know. Is that. I mean, that's what I thought we did the last. time. At least that's what my notes.
What is everybody else?
I don't trust my notes on this because I think when we got to that point, we were thinking about, we need a better definition.
we're at the point that I am right now.
Yeah,
It was.
It's pretty late, yeah. So I mean, what are we gonna do here?
I am.
Because like the cell making guy is he's in the GC 35.
Yeah.
GC 40.
Right.
Which is, which,
You're bringing jobs.
Yeah,
For all the people
yeah.
who are gonna live in the apartments.
so,
I mean, I agree with, I think your notes are fine, special permits for the first 3 and the site plan for the last 2. Right, because the last 2 are bigger areas that we expect some level of, well, not expect, but
Sewer
would allow.
utilities.
So let me ask you this, can we just say light manufacturing, primary use or accessory use? Special permit, special permit, special permit, site plan, site plan.
Yeah, I guess we should specify that it's both primary and second and accessory.
So I guess my question is. Would we want to make this, the sale maker? Have to be, we want him to have a
Special
special permit to do that, where he is, you know, just as an example,
Yeah,
I hear that.
you know.
could he do a site plan?
Well,
Well,
okay,
it's-
we had a public hearing to text amendment allow the use. Right, so that's already done for this particular applicant.
Yeah.
And what we would be doing then is, and I think we talked this out, that we would say,
Okay,
you know, next application for such a thing, special permit. Gives us an opportunity to assess, well, what are we doing, right? You know, how much manufacturing we talking about, noise and all that kind of
how
stuff.
much, how late?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, no, that's,
So
that's fine.
special permit. for the
Special
first
permit
three.
for the first three. Site plan.
All right, how about accessory use,
Same,
special permit?
yeah, I just mirror it.
Yeah, just write light manufacturing, primary use and accessory use.
No, accessory use, the, at the top, right under,
Oh,
I'm with you, I'm just saying you can get rid of those two lines and then,
Okay.
and just have one line for light manufacturing, one line for heavy. Heavy is all X's.
okay,
Light manufacturing can say primary use and secondary use.
okay.
Special, second.
No. I did have a question on one of the definitions. Why do we have junkyard? I mean, it's not listed in the chart.
Only because it was there already. Is it new? It is there.
Well, no, I mean, it was there and I think it looked like maybe it was partially worded or something. Because I mean, what you added was a definition of junk. I think. Right, which, because that defines what, you know,
Goes in a junk.
what goes in a junkyard. You can't have a junkyard, you can't.
You'll have
You
no idea where
can't
my
ban junkyards. if you don't
rabbit
define
holes,
junk.
my
Yeah.
brain goes down when I'm doing this stuff.
I'm okay with having definitions in our nice new updated definitions list that don't find a home in the uses in these zones. Because when we start taking the best things of these zones and applying them to the other zones, well, that work will already be done.
Okay.
I would be more worried if we had something talked about in a use that, you know, didn't have it.
That makes sense.
My only concern was if we put it in here, are they gonna think that we do allow? And say, well, how come you don't have it?
No, let's say. don't
Did you
mind
see
it.
it as an allowed use in these zones? No, you didn't.
That's carries on.
We considered that. We
Yeah.
thought of you. And we said, no way.
Fine, what we were gonna.
That's right.
Fine.
All right, we're good on the table?
Yes.
All right. Let's go through the rest of the agenda. Do we defer open space?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Report of commission, anybody have anything? Any public communications, Leslie? Jason, do you have something?
No, I was trying to think of things.
No, we don't have to, it's automatically accepted.
so I'm sorry, I have just a quick clarifying question.
Yeah.
Are we settled then for the 16th or for the 29th being the presentation? Or sorry, November 19th, November 19th, okay,
Yeah.
so I can start telling people about that.
I. Oh, they, just in the, for what it's worth category, I did get a call from Scott Regan today. The building official who said that, the project on West, the Colonel Ledyard School came in for a permit for the school.
Okay.
Just that piece of the project. We're gonna put a second story on it, so we'll be getting some housing.
Excellent. Well, he was gonna do it as two,
two phases.
Phases, yeah.
And he can, you know, unless there's some reason, you know, so he won't get a CO on this part unless he's got the parking he's supposed to have and the fire lanes and general amenities that are required, like dumpsters, trash.
that's good news.
Yeah.
And the only thing I was gonna mention in the report of commission is the other ordinances that were read. You know, we have a printout here. It's worth taking a look at some of the other things that the city council put through the other night. They serve our interests, you know, they're not germane necessarily to just these zones, but, you know, blight was updated.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, noise and blight basically were the two big things that caught my attention. And I think that's, you know, it's for future reference in other zones, really, but it was good to see that. So I'd like to see how that plays out.
Especially since we don't have jurisdiction over those in the zoning regulations. Which is frustration when you get the calls on Monday saying there was a party on Saturday.
Sure.
What are you gonna do?
Well, not, I mean, but it says right in the ordinance, if it's enforced by the police.
Right.
The ordinance states that, yeah.
Yep.
So. All right, any public communications, Leslie, you got anything, anybody? So. The permit submitted for this, for the, school, that's good for the staff. Adjournment, motion to adjourn.
I motion.
All right. Courtney motions to adjourn, is there a second? Second from Sue. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 9:41. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all of you so much.